My name is William Maitland. I'm an assistant state attorney in Jacksonville, Florida. I'm the poster child for workaholics, having thrown away one of the hottest women in Jacksonville, my 2 children, and a 20-year relationship because I couldn't maintain a life apart from my job as the top working prosecutor in Jacksonville. 3 months ago, I had a wife. In another month or so, I won't. I haven't taken the breakup well, although it has done my physical conditioning a world of good. It also led me to a mini breakdown, which in turn led my boss, the real top prosecutor, to exile me from my job and troubles for a week-long cruise on the French-operated cruise ship, Bonne Chance. The cruise has done me a world of good. I met a poor little rich girl who surprisingly has more problems than I do, at least showing me that I don't have the worst life on the planet. And I've also met the captivating and charming Aline Desjardins, one of the 3 cruise directors on the ship, who has been engaging with me, boosting both my confidence and spirits for the past 3 days. Unfortunately, when I began to suspect her attentions were part of her job, ensuring I didn't do anything irrational like throwing myself overboard in a moment of despair, it left me feeling betrayed. This realization didn't sit well with me, and it escalated quickly. It ended with Ms. Desjardins telling me, quite bluntly, to take my ego and leave, instead of possibly getting closer to her. And that is why, at 12:30 a.m., after upsetting the first woman I've seriously considered being with in 18 years since my marriage, I've showered and am making my way over to the Alpha Lounge at the bow of the ship, where I expect to see Ms. Desjardins enjoying herself without me. No doubt I'll be insulted or ignored in a way that will cut deep. Much like when Missy Cartwright laughed at me in junior high after I nervously asked her to dance at my first formal. But whatever happens, at least I'll be doing something as my life spirals down the drain of fate. If I'm going down swinging. Fools rush in. Monday, July 18th, 2005, 12:35 a.m. I stepped out of the elevator that went from the 6th to 7th decks of the Bonne Chance. Down the hall, I saw a small group of 5 men and women laughing and chatting. I recognized 3 of the women from earlier and noticed 2 younger male staff members with them. The doorway to the Alpha Lounge was open, filled with lights and music. I didn't need the sign above to know that my moment was getting closer. I had faced tough situations before, but walking down that hall made me more nervous than ever. One woman in particular made me uneasy, but as the saying goes, fools rush in. They stared at me with curiosity as I got closer. I wore black slacks and a matching turtleneck that I had freshened up while on board. One of the taller male staff members stepped forward as I neared the doorway. "I'm sorry, sir," he said, standing in a way that hinted he was blocking my way. "The Alpha Lounge is for invited guests only. There are other lounges and bars open right now on the ship." "I have an invitation. Miss Desjardins asked me to come. Could you please check with her? My name is William Maitland." He looked at me and then at the other male staff member. They exchanged a glance, and I knew what he would say next. "I'm sorry, sir, but Miss Desjardins said you might come and asked us to tell you that you are not welcome here." Now that I was here, the situation felt less frightening. "People change their minds. Please tell her that Mr. Maitland wants to apologize. You can do that, right?" He tried to stare me down, but then shrugged and spoke something in French to the other officer, likely telling him to keep me out while he checked, then walked into the lounge. We kept staring at each other while the 3 women continued to giggle and whisper among themselves. It didn't take long before the tall officer returned. "I'm sorry, sir. She said she hasn't changed her mind and suggests you consider what she said before." Well, that was clear enough. She wasn't happy. My hopes were crashing down. Oddly, I felt okay. I had tried. There probably was no chance anything could have happened between a woman like her and a man like me. But at least I wouldn't regret what could have been. I glanced back at the elevator, but then changed my mind. She might keep me out of the lounge, but she couldn't stop me from looking down at the ocean from this side of the ship. The railing wrapped around almost all of the section. "How do I get to the deck railing from here?" I asked. You can take the elevator down to the 6th floor and step out to the deck from there. I want to go out on the deck railing. I'm afraid. Yeah, as they say, you should be very cautious. You can easily keep me out of the lounge, but I doubt you can stop a paying guest from walking on the outside railing of the ship. If you try, I'll make sure your company hears about it and regrets selling my boss a ticket for this cruise. The officer looked at his partner and they both seemed worried. Finally, the taller one said, "Follow me," and took me down the hallway past the lounge to a closed door. He pushed a metal bar across the door. It creaked open, revealing the outside railing that surrounded most of this section. "It locks from this side," he mentioned, using a metal rod to keep the door propped open near a fire extinguisher. The door could not close or lock. "You won't be locked out. Just remove the bar and put it back when you come in, please. Oh, and—" "I'm not going to interrupt your meeting," I replied, glancing back at the 3 passengers chatting animatedly. "I just need some fresh air and a new perspective. Then I'll stay out of your way and Miss Desjardins' way. Please tell her I wish her better luck with her next job." I stepped outside without waiting for an answer. I walked to the railing and took one last look at the lounge. I could hear some music playing inside, but the words were unclear. Then I turned to the ocean below. The view was from the opposite side of the ship. From the other deck, I had seen the ship slicing through the Caribbean. Now I watched the waves trail behind us as the ship moved ahead. It was cool and refreshing as the wind blew on the deck. I felt droplets on my face, possibly from the sea. The ship was obviously not moving as swiftly as it had on previous nights. Marsh Harbor in Abaco wasn't too far away, so they were clearly taking their time, aiming to arrive in 6 or 7 hours. I lost track of time, and when I glanced at my watch again, it read 1:30 a.m. Where had the time gone? You are not just a very unpleasant person, but also quite foolish. Most people would have taken the hint that they were unwelcome and just walked away. Maybe I am too unaware to know when I'm not wanted. Anyway, I hoped you'd be annoyed enough to come out and speak with me. She had changed out of her blue and gold uniform into a light blue blouse and blue slacks. She regarded me with her serious expression. "Why?" "I think my feelings for you are clear, and you've made your feelings for me very clear too, Mr. Maitland. What else do we have to discuss?" I turned to her and reached for her hand. She was tense but didn't pull away. "I just wanted to say I'm sorry, Aline. Then I'll leave and I'll try to avoid seeing you again. I truly regret how I judged you. I'm sorry for upsetting you when you were only doing your job. I didn't handle things well because I admit I was thinking of happy moments with you. You are a lovely woman, and I know others see that too. I was hurt, but I realize I had no right to treat you that way. You didn't have to, but it hurt more because I liked you. You seemed different. When you said those things, I was surprised. I know this might not change how you feel, but one reason I acted this way is that I'm in a tough situation." She looked at me with interest. "I've been married for 18 years and was in a serious relationship for almost 2 years before that. I've forgotten how to connect like this." She stepped a little closer. "The captain said your boss mentioned you were going through a hard divorce and feeling hurt by your wife. It all started with 4 words that changed everything for us. So I began to share everything. I told her about the emails, recalling them almost exactly. I watched her face as I shared my story, not holding back. I talked about how Debbie and I met and how I never truly felt she loved me. Our marriage felt more like appreciation than real love. I wasn't sure why I felt the need to open up to her, a stranger. And that's why I'm on this cruise. That's why I've been more reserved than usual. I didn't want this life. I want what I had, even though I know I can't have it again. I still care for her, even with my disappointment. I'm not sure if I'll ever stop caring, but I hope that day comes soon. And that's why your words hurt so much. I was married to a wonderful woman who I don't think felt the same about me and is with someone younger right now. And then I met you. For the first time since all this began, I thought life might not be so bad. Then you told me I was just a job, nothing more." She hadn't said anything, but she also hadn't moved away. I let go of her hand. "And that's my story, and my apology. I'm sorry for keeping you from your friends and your party. I'll go back now. I'll really try to stay out of your way for the rest of the trip. It's only a few days." "You weren't just a job, Mr. Maitland," she said, moving a bit closer with a softer look. In a brief moment, she stepped back, reaching out with one finger to wipe a small mark from my lips. I accept your apology, Mr. Maitland, William. William is my name, but my friends call me Bill. I accept your apology, Bill. If I had known, I would not have acted like I did. I understand what it feels like to truly care for someone, and I can't imagine how hurtful betrayal must be. I touched my lips, feeling the moment. Then why? How? Friends don't greet each other like that in your country. Not in this way. She smiled in the darkness, and I felt something inside me start to warm as I reminded myself, you will not get close to this married woman. But I am French, and you are on French ground. Things are different here. Then she said, the party goes on. Come inside and have something to eat and drink. We can chat. She offered her hand to me. I knew this could lead to trouble, but I took her hand and walked into the Alpha Lounge. That had never happened with any woman I've been with. She smiled softly. Doug, you've already got me. You don't need to try so hard. It's the truth. He looked at her fondly and said, you want to. She shook her head. Doug, I need to get up early for a meeting at 8. You can stay here tonight, but I want you out before Kelly and BJ return later. I'll be up and gone by 9 at the latest. I'll try to avoid Little Miss Trouble. Doug, I was just kidding. I don't want to see her either, Deb. Make sure you don't. She and Bill Jr. are both out tonight, so it should be fine. Are you sure you... No, Doug, it was nice, but I need some rest. Anyway, don't tell me you're worried about Bill again or feeling guilty or both. It's silly, but I'm here with you, and I don't know if Bill has been with anyone while he's away. He's on that cruise ship while others are having fun, and I can't picture him enjoying it. He hasn't had much luck lately. Deb, people change. Just because you two aren't together anymore doesn't mean there isn't anyone out there for him. I've been on those cruises. You'd be surprised. He'll come back feeling relaxed and better. A lot of what he's dealing with is just not having fun lately. Probably. That should have been comforting, but as she turned to cuddle against Doug's strong frame, she wondered why the idea of Bill with someone else was troubling. It wasn't jealousy, but Monday, July 18th, 2005, 2 a.m. The Alpha Lounge was filled with smoke. The French were not likely to give up their cigarettes, and while they might follow U.S. health rules in public areas, any purely French place would be smoky. Almost every crew member except Aline seemed to be smoking, and half the guests were too. I thought about stepping outside for some fresh air, but Aline hadn't released my hand since we entered the lounge. I felt like a high school kid walking behind his girlfriend. It was a bit embarrassing, but also something I was proud of. I couldn't help but notice how many of the men around watched her and then looked at me, knowing they couldn't help wanting to be near her. A male and female duo played a mix of music, from the American hits of the 60s to songs that reminded me of Edith Piaf and Billie Holiday. I thought I heard La Vie en Rose, which has always been one of my favorites. The event had a well-stocked bar and a table filled with delicious treats like caviar, lobster tails, and duck à l'orange in a rich sauce. There were also trays that seemed to have escargot. I first tried escargot on a trip to Paris, and to my surprise, I liked them, even though I grew up in a small West Virginia mining town. Aline took me to the food table, and I tried a few escargot and caviar, which surprised her. "Are you sure you're not French?" she asked with a smile. She introduced me to the staff and guests while holding my hand. People looked at us with knowing smiles as we walked around. One male staff member was nearby, caught up in a loud conversation. Aline approached him and playfully nudged him. "Renee, calm down." He looked at us and quickly ended his chat. This isn't an open invitation for staff and guests. Some connections can happen on trips like these, but staff must be respectful. He was pushing it. He's lucky the captain or bosses didn't see. As we walked on, I enjoyed the food Aline had encouraged me to try. She led me to an open area near the musicians, who played a lively tune perfect for slow dancing. "Dance with me," she said, coming closer. She was my height and fit comfortably against me as we swayed. I wasn't the best dancer, but I moved us across the floor. For the first time in months, I felt a wave of emotions, trying to stay calm. I was very aware of how close we were, feeling both excited and nervous about the moment. She leaned in and softly said, "It's all right. I would feel a bit hurt if I didn't have an effect on you." I kept silent and focused on my thoughts. After a while, feeling better, she took my hand and led me to the bar. I ordered a Bloody Mary, and she picked white wine. As we stood there, drinking and chatting, a tall woman with a dress covered in sparkling gems approached Aline. She looked at me and said, "Aline, dear, who is your friend? You seem very close. Have you noticed you haven't let go of him since you walked in? Miss Stein, let me introduce you to Mr. William Maitland. He is a lawyer." She looked at me with a bit of disapproval and asked, "A lawyer? Do you deal with big business deals or international matters? Are you in New York or Los Angeles? Who do you work for? Someone famous?" "Criminal law," I replied quickly before Aline could jump in. "I represent clients involved in serious matters." Her expression changed as she absorbed this. "Criminal law? Serious matters?" "Yes, unfortunately. It might not seem as exciting as business or entertainment law, but it's important work." Aline tried to hold back a smile. Mrs. Stein, in her beautiful dress, took a deep breath and said, "A prosecutor, you know. I think. You are quite impressive, aren't you? I read about you online." She stepped between Aline and me, taking my hand, clearly excited. "That's cool. When I saw your picture, you looked very strong. Are you this confident in everything, Mr. Maitland?" Without making it obvious, Aline moved closer to me, putting herself between us. With a soft smile, she said, "I'm afraid that is all just media hype, Miss Stein. Mr. Maitland is quite friendly in many ways. Oh, Bill, didn't you say you had an early meeting tomorrow? I'm sorry, Miss Stein, but I really need to get Bill going." With that, she led me away before Mrs. Stein could say anything more. Once outside, I raised my eyebrows in surprise. Aline laughed and said, "I'm sorry, but if we had stayed a moment longer, she would have been too forward." I felt a rush of excitement and asked, "And that would be a bad thing, why?" Her smile faded a little. "You wanted her attention?" "Not really." I met her gaze and she looked away, a slight blush on her cheeks. I was surprised by how comfortable I felt in this conversation. I should have felt out of my depth, yet I was enjoying the time with this interesting woman. I started to think if the younger version of me had been asleep for the past 20-some years and was coming back to life now, or if it was just being near her. I turned to look at the waves fading behind us. The stars were bright in the dark sky. There were no clouds. A big round moon hung above, looking so close you could almost reach out and touch it. The moonlight lit up her face, making her look almost magical. She walks in beauty, like the night of cloudless skies and starry nights, and all that's best of dark and bright meets in her appearance and her eyes. You remember your poetry. Do you use that line often with young ladies? I might have a long time ago. I'm not sure why I said that, it just came to me. Something about how you looked tonight inspired it. I placed my hand gently on the side of her face and she leaned into me. "Don't do this, don't do this, don't do this," I reminded myself as I leaned forward. This wasn't a hurried kiss like the first one we shared. It was soft and gentle. I thought about Debbie and wondered when we last had a nice moment together. Where had those times gone? "Go away, Debbie," I told myself, trying to push away all the memories, both good and bad. She was part of my past and shouldn't hold me back. I finally found the strength to pull away gently. What was I doing? "I'm sorry, Aline, I shouldn't have done that." "Sorry for what? It was just a moment. I'm still a married man, at least for a little while longer, and you seem to be happily married. Most men learn when they're young. If a woman doesn't say stop, she probably wants to keep going." She leaned in again, and I felt that familiar tug. As this moment stretched on, I realized what it might mean. Where is it okay to act on feelings like this? I wasn't sure. I gathered myself and stepped back, creating some space between us. We both took a moment to catch our breath. "Before we turn in, would you like to walk around the ship, Bill? The early morning is different. Most passengers are sleeping, and the staff is either resting or busy below decks getting ready for the day. It feels like we have the ship to ourselves in our own little world." Walking sounded better than staying where we were. I worried that staying too long could lead to temptation and poor choices. If I was not careful, I could misunderstand her kindness and miss the chance to enjoy her company, or worse, end up in a situation I would regret. We walked through the open door and replaced the metal bar. As we passed by the lounge, I heard music and laughter coming from inside. She smiled at me. When it gets really late, it can get a bit lively in there. Maybe we should skip it for now. It might be a bit much. She nudged me playfully. Are you sure you're just an old married man? Or maybe that's a clever way to keep women from being curious about you? I was. More married than you can imagine. Was is the important part. We took the elevator down to the 6th deck and stepped out onto the front of the ship. I caught sight of faint lights in the distance. They weren't steady like building lights, but flickering on the horizon. It's stormy over Abaco, she said. That's lightning. It should pass by when we get closer. Is there anything out here that isn't just beautiful? Despite the distance, I felt the first drops of rain start to fall. Without thinking, I raised my arm and she moved closer. We stood together, watching the lightning in silence as the wind picked up. Why did you really take the babysitting job? If you hadn't, we wouldn't be here now. I know you wouldn't have looked my way. Why do you think that? She placed her hand over mine. I see other women trying to get your attention even though you seem serious, and you turn them away. You think I'm interested in you just because I took the job of watching over you? Why do you believe no one could like you for who you are? Because I know what I look like, and I'm not tall or striking. I realized that a long time ago. In my life, if a woman talks to me, it's because I can help her. I don't draw attention. And the one woman I thought might care about me said she needed to leave and start her own life. That really hurts your self-esteem. She turned to me and gently made me look into her eyes. You want me to say looks don't matter to women? I won't insult you. Sure, an attractive, confident man gets noticed. But women also look for more than just looks. Women respond to strength, confidence, and sometimes a bit of boldness. A woman often wants to feel safe and cared for. We also appreciate kindness and bravery. I think your wife probably admired what you did that night. You could call it admiration, but many women are drawn to that kind of courage. It might not have lasted for her, but she's just one person. There are many others who may see beyond the past. She leaned in closer, her warmth surrounding me. I had your picture when you first came on the Bonne Chance. I was looking for you. I watched you, and it may sound strange, but there's a certain way you carry yourself. I can't quite explain it, but you move with a kind of grace. Even among the other passengers, I noticed it. And if I say you remind me of a strong creature, you might laugh. But it's true. You seem aware of everything around you. When you look at people, it's like you really see them. You are not a bad man, Bill. I've only known you a few days, but I wouldn't be here if you were. There is something good in you. Now I know you're imagining things, I said, realizing part of what she meant came from the training I had. There's a certain calm that comes from focus and discipline that often goes unnoticed. And you may not even see it, but you carry a sense of authority. You remind me of the captain. He doesn't need to raise his voice. People often react because he expects them to. I think that's how you manage your work life. That kind of strength and confidence can be very appealing to some people. Maybe if you brought that confidence home. We stood quietly, watching the storm come closer until I said, when I first saw you that afternoon, I felt a strange spark. Usually that happens when something important is about to happen. Are you an important challenge? She turned away and leaned against me. When you looked back and I noticed you knew I was watching, it felt like a jolt of electricity went through me. I've only felt that way once before. It was the first time I saw Philippe, my husband, at a party in Paris. We exchanged looks across a friend's living room. He was charming, and I just knew we would leave together. The way I reacted to you surprised me. I couldn't fully understand it. You were a stranger. I still don't know if I understand it. But meeting someone who might mean a lot to you can be a bit scary. I thought about her words. Could I see myself as a strong presence moving through the crowd, catching eyes without trying? Just thinking about it made me want to laugh. But why would she say those things? I realized that if her goal was just to get something from me, it wouldn't show her in a good light. Yet, after 10 years as a prosecutor, my instincts didn't suggest any hidden motives. Maybe my boxing, my changed appearance, and the authority I carried from my job made people see me differently. But did that really explain such a big change, from being unnoticed to standing out? As Lee, my friend, had mentioned, I had been married and out of the dating scene for almost 20 years. Now that was no longer the case. I buried my face in her hair and caught a scent I didn't know. If this was what friendship between a man and a woman meant in a French way, I could accept it. You still haven't answered my question. Why did you really take the babysitting job? She turned in my arms to face me, a playful smile on her lips. I told you part of the truth the other night, just not all of it. I did see the story about the angel of death. Your reporter, Mr. Cameron, presented you in a memorable way. I was curious, but there was a more personal reason I wanted to know about you. I had told her I was interested in legal matters. My husband, Philippe, is a prosecutor in Paris. He works as a deputy in the chief prosecutor's office. We have been married for nearly 10 years, and through him, I've learned a lot about prosecutors and court systems. It felt like the ground had vanished beneath me, and I was hanging in the air. Is your husband Philippe Desjardins from the Paris office? No, Desjardins is my maiden name. I kept it because I worked for the cruise line before we got married. Could it be Philippe Archambault? She looked at me in surprise. How did you know? I silently wished for this all to be a bad dream. I met him around 3 years ago in Paris, Aline. It was during my first trip to France. We were dealing with a serious issue involving young girls from poorer areas of France, mostly around Paris. Philippe helped me during that week. The friendly Frenchman had taken me to some local places after work. He introduced me to escargot and shared some interesting parts of Parisian life. I once asked about his wife, and he said she was away for work. He had been very friendly, especially with his secretary and a junior female lawyer, as well as an attractive police officer and a bartender in a place often visited by cops and prosecutors. He seemed charming, but I thought it was not my business. He was a serious prosecutor, and we cooperated well. Still, the situation made me uneasy. He may have been unfaithful, but I let go of her and took a step back. What's wrong, Bill? You know my husband? So what? We didn't do anything really wrong, just a little flirting and dancing. Is that so bad? Maybe not in your world, but in mine. That's how my life fell apart. She moved closer and put her fingers behind my neck, pulling me in. I could have stopped her, but I didn't want to. She let go and said, We haven't crossed any lines, Bill, and I know that if Philippe isn't with someone now, he soon will be. Don't waste your time worrying about my marriage. You know very little about me or my life. Can you just enjoy the next few days? Don't think, just be with me. I recalled the big man's words, let yourself be surprised. I really was surprised. This had all been unexpected since the Bon Chance left its dock in Jacksonville. I never imagined I would find myself drawn to a married woman, especially the wife of someone I considered a friend, while I contemplated the possibility of being with her. I had to be honest with myself. I was thinking about her, and I really hoped we would grow closer. I'll try. When we reached my room, she kissed me quickly, but then stepped back. No, I'm sorry, Bill. It's not that I don't want to, but... Good night, Aline. Thank you for this evening and the last few days. You don't have anything to apologize for. As I lay down on the big round bed, part of me felt sad that she wasn't with me, while another part was glad she had left. I couldn't decide how I really felt. Monday, July 18th, 2005, 8:30 a.m. She sat up in bed, suddenly aware of what had woken her. Sunlight was pouring through the window, much brighter than the 6 a.m. time she had set her alarm for. She glanced at the clock, which was blinking. There had been a storm overnight that turned off the power and reset the alarm. She couldn't afford to be late for this meeting, knowing any mistake could work against her. Doug stirred a bit but went back to sleep when she told him he could rest a little longer. She had picked out her clothes and showered the night before, but it still took time to get ready. She grabbed a small bagel on her way out and hit the road. 20 minutes into her drive, she realized she had left an important folder on her dresser. She needed it for the meeting. Even if it made her late, she had no choice but to turn back for it. She hurried back into the house and rushed up the stairs but stopped in her tracks at the bedroom door. What she overheard made her heart sink, and she stood frozen, unable to think clearly. What are you doing in here anyway? What does it look like? I'm here because I like you. Go back to your room. I need to get ready before your mother comes back. She wouldn't believe me if I said we weren't doing anything. You know you want me. I'm not a kid. I've seen how you look at me when you think no one is watching and that day at the pool. Listen, I look at you because I'm a guy. You are beautiful. But that's all it is. That day at the pool was a mistake. Please, just get dressed and leave. That's silly. Don't you think I'm attractive? Please, if anyone finds out about this, it would be serious for me. You're younger, and while you're stunning, it's not worth the trouble. I promise I won't tell anyone. I really do like you. That's nice, but I care about your mother, too. She's older. Don't you think I'm better looking? She's not old, but she's not you either. If things were different, I would be more serious. That's not fair. Please, just get dressed. Both of them jumped when Debbie spoke. Kelly was sitting on the edge of the bed with her legs folded. Doug was clearly not dressed, but was covering himself with a sheet. You heard me, Kelly. Get dressed and go. But just do it. I'll come talk to you soon. They stood in silence for a moment. Then Kelly picked up her pajamas and left the room. Once she was gone, Doug stood up and walked toward Debbie. Debbie, please listen. It's not what you think. I promise nothing happened. I know. That's actually why I'm not overreacting. He reached for her, but she took a step back. Please don't touch me. Just get dressed. But please hurry, Doug. I still have to get to my meeting. He quickly put on his pants and shoes before grabbing his shirt from the bathroom. Debbie, just go, Doug, and take anything you have here. I don't want you to come back. He looked at her, shocked. Not coming back? If you heard... We're done, Doug. We'll have to work together, but I hope you can find another job soon. I can't believe this. Why are you doing this? Gently, he took her shoulders, wanting to pull her closer. She let it linger for a moment, but then stepped back for space. Why, Debbie? You can't be serious. Why are you doing this? I know you didn't plan for this, but if you were going to get close to someone else, it would be the right time. That's why I won't tell Bill. She stepped back, trying to hold back tears, wanting to remain strong. I won't tell him because I worry about what he might do. I want to keep you safe and don't want his life to end up in chaos. He has connections that could make things tough. But I don't want that either. You can't help it if people notice you. I can't blame you for what happened with Kelly. You didn't have to get close to her, but I know it wouldn't be fair to ask you to change. Still, we can't keep this going. He shook his head. I'll step away. I won't come around and we can meet somewhere else. I'll cut off contact with her. I've been honest with you, aside from not being clear about my original intentions. He reached for her again. This is so messed up. What we have is important. I hate that we're in this position, but please don't end it. She gently pushed him away. I won't change my mind, Doug. This isn't about you. It's about me. I shouldn't have started anything until I was really finished with Bill. I should have waited until I was free. Instead, I got you mixed up in all this. I thought the kids would be okay with it, but that hasn't happened. BJ is around less, and Kelly clearly likes you. She reached out to touch his cheek, feeling the age difference between them. I told you this wouldn't last, Doug. It just wasn't meant to be. I have really enjoyed our time together, but I can't let things get more complicated with Kelly. I remember when I was 17 and how strong those feelings can be. She probably thinks she loves you, and that makes everything harder for me as her mother. That's a tough situation for any 17-year-old. This isn't fair, Deb. You know that. I wasn't fair to Bill when I was with you while still married to him. I haven't been fair about many things. Fairness doesn't matter. I can't have you in my life anymore, Doug. How can you be so distant, Deb? You said you didn't love me, but you feel nothing for me at all. I forgot that I am a mother. I was thinking only of myself. I put my kids behind you, but you were never going to stay forever. My kids will always be here when you're gone. They'll be here when Bill is no longer a part of my life. No matter who I meet in the future, they are what truly matters. He opened his mouth as if to reply, but then he turned and walked toward the bedroom. Have a good life, Deb. Call me if you change your mind. After she heard him leave, she went to Kelly's room. Kelly was dressed casually and pretending to look at something on her laptop. I'm not going to lecture you because I was 17 once too, but he's almost twice your age. Even if he shows interest in you, you're still a kid. Do you really think he's interested in anything more serious? That seemed to work for you, Mother. Or were you planning to marry him? I'm not you, I'm an adult. She tossed her laptop onto the bed. You're not as young as you used to be. Do you realize how you attract attention? My friends talk about you behind your back. I can't control how I look, Kelly. People have looked at me since I was younger than you. Should I hide myself away? You'll face the same things. Some people will only see you one way. I know what that feels like. Attention can't be avoided. You make me sick. You've been looking for attention for a long time. I'm glad he left you. You don't deserve him. Sure, he may not be exciting, but he has never let you down. I can't say the same about many fathers of my friends. Debbie took a step back. No matter what, she would be late for her meeting. Doug was gone. It was going to be a tough day. But this issue nagged at her. Why don't you go live with St. Bill if you care about him so much? Oh, right, he didn't want you, did he? He had time for other kids, but never for you and your brother. How many school events has he attended? How many has he missed? I know you care for him, Kelly, even if he doesn't feel the same. But that has blinded you to who he really is. If you were in my place, you would have moved on long ago. He's busy, Mom. Maybe I should just go live with Doug? She smiled at that idea. I'm turning 18 in 3 weeks, Mom. I'll be an adult. You can't keep me here. When I show up at Doug's apartment, you think he will ask me to leave? I don't think so. I can see us building a future together. You know, you and Dad have been at odds for a long time. I'm closer to his age than you are. I might even go to college for a 4-year program. I could save money by living with him. I think he would like that. I believe he would be a great father. She stepped off the bed, feeling confident, almost matching Debbie's height as she added, I believe I can win him over. If I do, I'll be Mrs. Doug Baker and you'll be my mother-in-law. How cool would that be? Debbie reacted before she could think. Her hand unintentionally moved and Kelly stepped back slightly, a red mark appearing on her cheek. You shouldn't say those things. Kelly rubbed her cheek, trying not to cry. Good shot, Mom. Did that feel good? It's too bad Dad didn't step in years ago. You might have stayed married. Debbie sat back on the bed. Why don't you go to your meeting, Mom? I won't be here when you get back. Kelly, don't be silly. I don't want to involve anyone else. Oh, sure, you don't want anyone else involved. I'll just take a picture of this mark on my face. I know how to get attention. I can see the headlines now. It wouldn't be good for your job. Don't talk like that. I'll let you know where I'll be. I'll probably go stay with Grandma and Granddad Bascom until after I turn 18, and then I'll look for a roommate. I think Dad will help me get an apartment, especially when I tell him I can't stand living here anymore. Debbie stared at her daughter for a long moment. It was striking how much she sounded like Debbie at 17. The saying, like mother, like daughter, certainly had some truth to it. Unfortunately, she remembered being 17, feeling restless and curious. As she walked past BJ's bedroom, she didn't notice the door open slightly and then close again. She drove to UNF, knowing she was late and would probably face a talk with her department head. She imagined seeing Doug most days and figured Kelly would likely be gone by the time she got home. Bill would probably find out soon, and if he chose to talk to her, he would remind her that Kelly didn't want to live with her. She felt a wave of emotions, but knew it would ruin her makeup. It didn't help that Bill, in his self-important way, was likely enjoying himself while she was stuck in this situation. Doug was right. Sometimes life just didn't seem fair. Monday, July 18th, 2005, 11:30 a.m. I didn't wake up until 10:30 a.m., which was late for most people. I hadn't gone to bed until after 3:30 a.m., which is not my usual routine. Waking up alone in that big round bed made me a bit confused. I started to wonder where Debbie had gone. Had she already left for breakfast? But since we were on a cruise, there was no work to rush to. She probably went to get breakfast and let me sleep a bit longer. I stretched, feeling my back and shoulders loosen. It felt nice. I thought about when I last felt so in tune with my body. I closed my eyes, imagining Debbie returning in her usual cruise clothes. She was always so full of life and energy, and I could see her walking in with a bright smile. Did you have fun out there? I would ask playfully as she came back in, wanting to keep the mood light. Always, she'd reply with a joyful sparkle in her eye, bringing happiness into the room. You always surprise me, I would say, feeling thankful for her lively spirit. Have you been a good girl? I'd tease, and she would laugh, filling the room with joy. Yes. It was wonderful seeing so many friendly faces. It made me feel alive, and I wanted to share that joy with you even more, she'd say, leaning closer. I lay back and let her warm moments fill my mind. It didn't matter that the thrill came from others around her. She always returned her warmth to me. She loved being around people and found excitement in it. As far as I knew, it wasn't about being with anyone else. She just had a way of bringing joy into our lives together. I felt I needed to gather my energy to keep up with her enthusiasm, and that was a joyful challenge. I stretched again, and memories rushed back. I thought of the last time we had gone on that cruise to Hawaii in 1995. I rubbed my eyes, shaking off sleep and nostalgia. What had happened to that loving partner who brought me so much happiness? 10 years and the demands of life had shifted things. Pushing those memories aside, the events of the previous night filled my mind. Aline Desjardins. I still couldn't understand her. We had known each other for just over a weekend, and our connection started because of her job. But there was a strong chemistry, the hint of something deeper. If there wasn't a real feeling there, she was the best actress I had ever met. And to think, she was Philippe Archambault's wife. The idea of getting close to her seemed unreal. As I lay there, I remembered Philippe. He was charming and easy to relate to, a man you couldn't help but like. Even though he was a powerful attorney at both the federal and state levels, he was very approachable. He got along well with everyone, fellow lawyers, police officers, and even those who had broken the law. He had a friendly vibe. If I didn't know about his status, I might have thought he was just another person doing his job. Like me, he cared about the work and the people we helped. He was dedicated to finding those who were taking vulnerable girls in Paris for bad reasons. He fought just as hard against kidnappers in another serious case involving a baby heir to a big shipping company in Marseille. I remembered a talk we had with someone involved in organized crime while trying to learn about the illegal trafficking network. As Philippe went to get drinks for everyone, an older man with a strange wig and noticeable dental issues leaned over and said in broken English about the poor souls who had the devil after them. A police officer with us laughed and explained, "He means the devil. Many unsavory people here try to stay on Philippe's good side. He earned that name for a reason. Those who have crossed him often face serious trouble. He's tough, but I'm glad he's on our side." It was clear Philippe was a good professional. Still, I had a feeling he was not being faithful to his wonderful wife. How could someone be honorable at work and fail at home? Maybe it was like my own challenge, struggling with feelings for a friend's partner. She had insisted I didn't understand her marriage. She said she wanted to be with me, no matter the reasons. Maybe nothing would come of it, and perhaps nothing should. I paused to think about the man who had boarded the Bonne Chance on Friday. I felt different. The hurt from my last relationship was still there, but I no longer felt defeated. I was a vibrant man nearing 42, and I realized age wasn't a barrier. I had felt stuck, and my marriage had seemed unfulfilling, but I was not without hope. It was amazing how a few days at sea, talking with an interesting woman, and having fun could change how I felt. I decided that when I got back, the first thing I would do was surprise the big man in his office, just to see the look on his face. I owed him for encouraging me to take this cruise, no matter what happened. I got out of bed, brushed my teeth, showered, and headed to one of the 9 restaurants on the ship. I ended up at Le Abec, the cleverly named sushi bar on Deck 4, which was open for 20 hours a day. I treated myself to a dozen mini sushi combinations, enjoying all kinds except the ones with big pieces of raw fish on rice. That was a bit much for me, but I generally liked anything that had sushi in its name. Sometimes I'd order it at a restaurant just to see Debbie, Kelly, and BJ make faces. I tried to show them how good it was for years, but eventually I gave up hope. After I finished, I walked around for a while, thinking about what to do next. I wanted to find Aline and wrap up some unfinished business, but I worried that might be too forward. I started to think about her and decided to take one of the cruise boats to Marsh Harbor. Abaco is a lovely small island, the closest in the Bahamas to the U.S. and mostly untouched. There are a few hotels and nice beaches, but it is nothing like the busy tourist spot of Nassau. Still, it had some unique shops, which was what I was after. I arrived around noon, looked around, and eventually found the right shop. I told the owner what I was looking for, and they showed me their items. I didn't find exactly what I wanted, but I knew it when I saw it, and within 3 hours, they made it for me. I took the boat back to the Bonne Chance, put my purchase in my room, and headed out to explore. The casinos were closed since we were still in Bahamian waters, and the shops on the ship wouldn't open until we sailed out in about 3 hours. So there wasn't much to do. I could have gone to look for Aline, but that made me feel uneasy. Even though she wasn't hiding her time with me, I thought it would seem a bit unprofessional to make it too obvious. I wandered around the ship, watching smaller boats and sailing crafts come to the Marsh Harbor docks. We were anchored about half a mile away. I was looking at a yacht that seemed to be around 35 or 40 feet long when I heard her say, "Looks like there's a part of you that isn't serious all the time, or are you just admiring that sailing boat?" I couldn't help but smile back at her. She often appeared serious, and without the playful tone in her voice, I wouldn't have known she was joking. I was admiring the boat, yes, but not just the boat. She gave me a playful tap on the shoulder. My mother used to say that all men are the same, even the good ones. Do you think I'm one of the good ones? What do you think? I almost reached out to pull her closer, but decided against it. She was in her ship's uniform again, and people were walking around us. She didn't seem to be flirting. "I hope so," I said. She smiled slightly, and it brightened her face. "Would you like to be a guest at the captain's table tonight? Being invited to dine with him and other special guests is a great honor. He asked me to pass on the invitation. You had nothing to do with it?" "No. He knows about your background and who you are. He enjoys having a diverse group for dinner." "Sure. What time?" 7 p.m. Please wear a suit." Then she left. The woman who had been so nice to talk to the night before was gone, but I still appreciated our conversation. I filled my time until nearly 7. Then I shaved and put on my best suit. I took the elevator to Deck 4 and entered the main dining room around 7:10 p.m. I hoped they appreciated being a bit late. I told the waiter I was invited to the captain's table, and he led me to a door at the back. It opened into a room with one large round table for 12. There were 3 officers in formal blue and gold uniforms and Aileen. They sat together, and there was an empty seat next to her. She looked up and smiled, gesturing for me to sit beside her. I did and glanced around the table. Miss Stein was almost directly across from me in a striking black dress. There was a tall blonde guy dressed casually but looking relaxed and enjoying the discussion. His name was Gil, another Jacksonville local I had never heard of. During introductions, I learned he used to work in research at Bell Labs and decided to take it easy after getting a few patents in electronics. A young couple at the table had won a lottery in New Jersey, which allowed them to join this cruise. There was also a billionaire who made his fortune in cell phones and his enthusiastic wife who admired the food. Lastly, there was a priest, Father Dunleavy, a short, thin man with a friendly face. I learned he had won the Nobel Peace Prize for his efforts to stop violence in 1994. I shook his hand and said, "I'm honored to meet you, Father. I've read about your work. You are a courageous person who helped many lives." "I was just following the path the Lord set for me, Mr. Maitland. It seems you have done the same." "I'm not sure about that, Father. Sometimes I wonder if there is a higher power at all." "The Lord guides us in ways we often don't realize," he replied. "I have to say it's interesting to meet someone known as the Angel of Death." Some people looked confused, showing they didn't know Cameron's background. I shrugged and said, "My name has been a bit blown out of proportion, Father. I know you deal with the Angel of Death in a different way. For me, it's just a name." Dunleavy looked at the young couple, who seemed surprised, and joked, "I was just playing around. He's a prosecutor in the district attorney's office in Jacksonville. That name came from a case he worked on this past week. Naturally, they wanted to know more, so I shared the basic details of the case, what I had learned, what steps I took, and the end result. The young wife looked at me with concern and said, "That poor man." The billionaire glanced at his wife, likely considering a different viewpoint, and said, "Poor man? Not really. He made his choice for his reasons." This sparked a lively discussion until Captain Charles Morel, a strong man with a white beard in his late 50s, tapped his knife on his water glass. He said, "Everyone, this is an interesting talk. I think we will have a great evening, but let's enjoy the food made by our chefs first and pick up this conversation later." We ate and talked about different subjects for the next hour. I noticed Aline during a quiet moment and said, "You look very fresh today." Stein looked at both of us and replied, "It's youth. Aline hasn't turned 40 yet and can enjoy herself all night while still looking vibrant. Of course, being in love brings out a certain glow. Any secrets you'd like to share, Aline?" She turned to Stein, her tone serious, and said, "Miss Stein, not everyone at this table might understand your humor. They might find your comment a bit out of place. You know I'm a married woman." Stein just smiled and said, "Are you saying that married women can't feel love?" "That's surprising. I found that to be quite normal in my past marriages." "It's a great experience, even better than any vitamin. Actually, there are lots of vitamins and minerals if you do it right." She looked over at the housewife and asked, "I bet you've developed feelings for someone while married, right?" The housewife blushed, glanced at her husband's serious look, blushed again, and focused on the food on her plate. The billionaire's wife looked up and said, "There should be rules against bad behavior on family cruises," which I thought this was. Stein just looked at her and replied, "Make it a rule against inappropriate actions, and I will agree with you." The cruise director, a tall young man with neat hair, tried to calm things down by saying, "I've read some stories about this case, and I believe it must have been hard for you to handle, Mr. Maitland. Did you ever doubt what you were doing?" "Of course, sometimes. Some cases are clear and easy, but there are tough ones, and this was one of the hardest. I think I did the right thing, but honestly, I've had doubts since then." "I wouldn't want your job," Gil said, the first thing he had said during the meal. "Many wouldn't, but as I've told others, someone has to take it." "The law isn't fair," the billionaire said while eating a piece of beef. "People with money can do anything they want, and those without it are ignored. That's just how life is, and the law doesn't change that. It just makes some think there is fairness." "I think you might not agree with that," Dunleavy said to me. I looked at the billionaire and said, "The son of a man with almost as much money as you is in prison today because he thought his wealth meant he could do anything. His father believed that too, but he learned that some things money can't buy. And as for those who are less fortunate." I took an escargot and ate it, washing it down with bitter coffee before sharing the story of Lily Mae Longstreet, a victim in my first case as an assistant prosecutor. Her killer was free for almost 2 years until he got caught in a bad deal. They searched for him around the area for months. The medical examiner indicated strong signs he was still alive during the investigation. I like to think Lily Mae is at peace with that. She left 2 sons, ages 7 and 9. That was 10 years ago. The older boy was sadly lost during a robbery last year. The younger boy is in a wheelchair and is in a low-security facility because he insulted a gang leader during a deal. He will never walk again, but one day he will be a free man. I know he is working on his high school diploma while in the center, so he might build a life for himself. Somehow I think you helped him get into that program, Mr. Maitland," Dunleavy remarked with a slight smile. "A friend of his mentioned that he always remembers the victims in his cases," Aline said. "How many prosecutors would have stayed in touch with a victim's family for 10 years? I don't think many would." Her husband married again the following year. His new wife left him after a few years, and he married for a second time. He started drinking heavily after Lily Mae's death and never stopped. He was found in bed a couple of years ago. The doctor said it was a heart attack. He was 45. Lily Mae herself never finished high school. I don't think anyone in her family ever earned a diploma. She was a hard-working woman who loved her husband and kids. I looked at the billionaire. Just southern white trash, as some people might say. But she was a person, not just a statistic. She deserved more than a tragic end caused by someone who was troubled. That's what the law is all about, making sure everyone's life matters, even those who are often overlooked. A long silence hung in the air until Dunleavy finally said, "I understand now why you are the prosecutor you are, Mr. Maitland." I finished the last escargot on my plate and washed it down with the last sip of my coffee. The French certainly know how to pair food and drink. "I'm nothing special, Father. I put on a suit and go to work every day. I've never faced down a group of unpredictable people armed only with hope. There are many who are like me, but not many like you." "There are not many like you, Mr. Maitland," Aline said gently. She took my hand under the table and squeezed it. Actually, I envy both of you, said Captain Morrell, drawing everyone's attention. I love my job, and I take pride in being good at it. The lives of many depend on my work, and I feel that weight. And yet... He gazed at the glass of red wine in front of him. My parents wanted me to study medicine. My father dreamed I would become a doctor like his uncle. From a young age, however, all I ever wanted was to go to sea. I have done that and have no regrets about the life I've led, even with the sacrifices it has brought. He took a sip of his wine, as he had all through dinner. Then he sighed and looked at Dunleavy and then back at me. It is only when I meet men like you that I have doubts about my path. You, Father Dunleavy, have cared for souls and helped people in need. You, Mr. Maitland, have fought for justice for those who came before you. Both of you have changed lives and made the world a better place. I have simply helped many tourists travel from one vacation spot to another. I enjoy my job, but at times it feels unimportant. The table fell quiet for a moment. Captain, my father passed away when I was 8. I don't remember much about him since I was so young, but I do remember walking in the woods with him. I recall the first time he handed me something and began to teach me how to use it. Just a few memories, but I wouldn't trade them for anything. Since I've been on this cruise, I've seen children playing and swimming with their parents. For many of them, the time spent here will be some of the best memories of their lives. They will face challenges later, but when they look back, they will remember this cruise. I've seen couples on the ship, enjoying the experience and each other. I know. You understand why I'm on this cruise, Captain. This morning, I remembered my last cruise, a trip to Hawaii my wife and I took 10 years ago. One evening off Maui, as we were about to return, my wife called me to the side. We saw whales swimming nearby, not far from the ship. They were stunning. I held my wife as we watched them. We were young, in love, and thought we had all the time in the world with our 2 children at home. I paused, needing to take a deep breath. So don't say you don't do anything important, Captain. You nourish people's spirits. You create moments they will treasure forever. I needed a moment away. As I walked off, I told the guests, "Excuse me for a moment, I'll be right back." When I returned, I noticed some curious looks and sympathetic expressions from the guests. Aline glanced at me briefly, her face hard to read. The captain just nodded and said, "Thank you, Mr. Maitland. I sometimes forget that we all have purpose in our lives. I appreciate your reminder of how my staff and I impact the lives of people we see for a few days and then may never see again. Now the chef has made some delightful desserts. Please, check out the dessert menus." The conversation continued for about half an hour before people started saying their goodbyes. Miss Stein gave a thoughtful look to the quiet Gil, who simply nodded. He then got up and smiled as he led her away. I wondered if anyone would see them for the rest of the trip. Most of the staff left, including the captain, who shook hands with Dunleavy and me one last time. The couple who had won the lottery hadn't said much since Stein's question, and I could sense some tension. He kept staring at her, but she wouldn't look back. She stood up and quietly left without saying a word to her husband, who gave her a quick nod as he followed. The billionaire and his wife also left, offering us brief nods, leaving just Dunleavy, Aline, and me. He looked at me and said, "The captain shared your situation, Mr. Maitland. I see you care deeply about your work, the people you represent, and I'm sure about your marriage. I will pray that things turn out well for both you and your wife." He stood up, shook my hand, then turned to Aline, who had been silent. He said, "I will pray for you too, Miss Desjardins. You spoke of your faith, and I believe that forgiveness and understanding come to those who seek it." After he left, we were alone. I didn't need to ask. I knew he would be at our table. I met with him to ask some questions. He is a wise man. We sat in the quiet room, undisturbed by the cleaning crew. In the distance, I could hear soft conversations and dishes being cleared from other tables. For a while, we sat in silence. Finally, Aline said, "I feel a bit uneasy, Bill. I think you might have a bad impression of me." "Why?" I asked. "I think you might expect something." The conversation was slow, but I understood her meaning. "Aline, you don't have to explain. I understand what happened last night. You had been drinking, we were talking late, and things moved further than you're comfortable with. You're married, and I respect that. I get it. Bill, I understand, Aline. I never thought anything serious would come from it. I won't say I didn't wish for it, but I would have had mixed feelings anyway. She looked down. I took out a small purple case from my jacket. "What is this?" she asked. I placed the case in her hand and said, "Please, let me explain." Taking a breath, I searched for the right words. When I got on this ship 4 days ago, I thought my life was without joy. I wasn't expecting anything to change. I felt lost. It had been almost 4 months since I connected meaningfully with someone. The only thing that mattered was my job and maybe reconnecting with my kids, but I had closed off the part of me that craved companionship. I wanted to forget that part of myself because it only brought pain and regret. I reached out and gently touched her face. And then I met you. You started changing me before I even realized it. We talked on the deck Saturday night, and then there was last night. Even if it was just a fleeting moment, it touched me deeply, for the first time since that night. I began to feel alive again. It didn't matter if I had a real chance with you. At least I felt ready to connect with someone again. Her eyes sparkled with emotion. That's why it doesn't matter if what you said and how you acted were personal or just part of your job. What matters is how I feel. You changed my life, Aline. When I leave this ship, I won't be the same person I was when I got on. I reached over and gently lifted the lid of the case. The lights above shone on the gold fleur-de-lis pin inside. I took it out, and her eyes grew wide in surprise. I placed the solid gold and diamond pin in her hand. The heart-shaped diamond at the center glimmered under the lights. She shook her head. "No, Bill, no, this is too much. You can take it. The fleur-de-lis is something you can wear with your uniform or everyday clothes. The diamond symbolizes our friendship. It stands for a lasting bond." "It's really too valuable. I can't accept it." "Show it to Philippe. Tell him it's a symbol of friendship from Bill Maitland. I hope he remembers me. Let him know you met me during a tough time in my life and how much it changed in just a week. Tell him he's lucky to have you in his life and that I respect him." She looked down at it, gently touching the heavy gold. "How much? $7,000? The diamond isn't the finest, but I got a good deal." "That's too much. I'm not rich, but I'm okay, Aline. What do I need extra money for? I make enough to care for my kids, and I've never focused on wealth." I stood up and gently pulled her to her feet to stand with me. "The main thing, Aline, is that you've changed my life, and I will never forget you. I doubt we'll ever see each other again. It would mean a lot to me to know a part of me will be close to you, and maybe someday you'll hold it and think of me. That's all." I leaned forward and lightly touched her cheek. It was a nice thought, but I never really expected anything to come of it. Later that night, I was on the deck as we sailed. From what I had read, the Bonne Chance would slowly make its way back, stopping for a full day on a small private island in the middle of nowhere, and then return to Jacksonville on Thursday morning. It would then sail from Jacksonville for the next month and go further south to a port in South America, which would be its home port for 3 months. It was a free-spirited way of living. I went into a bar, grabbed a drink, and walked slowly toward the front of the ship. It was 11 p.m. I hadn't seen or heard from Aline, and I wouldn't. I watched passengers go by, most of them couples enjoying their time together. It should have made me sad, but somehow it didn't. As I walked along the deck, I spotted a familiar face leaning on the rail. I tried to remember his name. "First time I've seen you without your partner," I said to him. "I thought you two were always together." Dan Jenkins turned to face me slowly. He didn't have his usual smile. "We were out late last night and went to bed early tonight. She's sleeping now. I had some tough dreams. I couldn't fall asleep." "I know how that feels." Have you ever loved someone so much you felt like they were a part of you, and then suddenly they were gone, like a big empty space? Yeah. The hardest part is, well, I can't understand it. I thought we were happy. Then one day she tells me she loves someone else and wants me out of our home and our lives, and she never explained why. I thought about his words. I couldn't imagine things getting worse between Debbie and me, but this was worse. Poor guy. "Is this your second time?" I pointed vaguely back to the cabins. Yeah, I hope I'm not being too nosy, but I haven't seen you with that French lady lately. You were so close just a few days ago. I hope. We're just friends. She's married, and I'm still married, at least for another month. Can I ask you something personal? Sure. I'm a salesman. I know people and how they feel. You have to be able to read people to convince them to buy something they don't want. The way she looked at you wasn't like a friend. It was different. The same for you looking at her. I'd never want to encourage anyone to break up a marriage, but... He stared out at the sea. After my first wife, Holly, left, my life went downhill. I drank too much, found the wrong people, and didn't care about much. Then one day I had to go to an office for work. Just work. Caroline was at a desk. She looked up and our eyes met. I know it sounds like a bad story. But something changed. Looking back, I could have walked away, told myself it was nothing, that no one was worth the risk. But I didn't. I felt like I would fall if I didn't go over and talk to her, so I did, and here we are. She felt it too. So even if some people say it's impossible, it can happen. He turned back to me. What I'm saying is that we never know how many chances we will get in life. I thought Holly and I would be together forever. When that ended, I thought there would be no second chance. If I hadn't talked to Caroline, who knows if I'd have another chance. That French woman seems to be married, and I can see your ex really hurt you, but there's still a connection with the French woman. If you walk away, maybe you'll get another chance. Maybe you won't. There are no promises. He waved his hand. Just some free advice. It probably has some value, but you might want to consider it carefully. I have thought about it, but I believe it's not really important right now. Our past relationship seems to be behind us. Thank you for sharing about yourself. I wish you the best with Caroline. It's good to know that there are chances for new beginnings. I don't want to come off as a fatherly figure, but why are you out here talking to me when you could be relaxing in your room? It's important to keep your focus. He looked out at the ocean again and shook his head. I probably won't get much sleep tonight. I usually don't after those dreams. Maybe I should wake her up to tell her how fortunate I feel. He left me alone on the deck with my thoughts. We make promises for life, but how many of us really keep them? They say that staying married for life was easier when most people didn't live past their 40s or 50s, spending all that time just trying to survive. There wasn't really time to tire of each other. I didn't feel like wandering the ship tonight. So before midnight, I returned to my room. I took off my shoes, then my suit, and I changed into some shorts. I figured I should see if the exercise room was still open. Just as I was about to put my tennis shoes back on, I heard a knock at the door. I wondered who would be knocking so late. It crossed my mind that maybe it was an urgent message from the mainland, which meant Debbie or the kids. I opened the door to find Aline standing there in her bright blue and gold uniform. Her pins sparkled on her chest, but she was in tears. I wasn't sure what to say or do. "You hurt me," she said, stepping into the room. Before I could understand, she was in my arms, and the moment felt heavy. She pulled me further into the room, and soon enough, I was on the big red bed. "What? Why do you have to be so kind?" she whispered, her emotions swirling around us. I was surprised and struggled to express my confusion. "Please, just stay with me," she said, mixing frustration with need in her voice. I knew it was complicated. The bond we shared felt strong, yet I understood the difficulties of our situation. My mind raced with doubts. She was a married woman, married to someone I had once called a friend. She was obviously struggling with her feelings. As I pulled back, the weight of the situation pressed down on me. I had always stood by my values, even when I faced challenges in my own marriage. I was about to make a choice that felt heavy on my heart, knowing it might bring back some pain I had gone through before. Though I hesitated, I feared that when the time came, I might not meet the expectations, that I could fail to do what I thought I could manage. She replied in a way that left no room for doubt. We were both caught in a moment, but deep inside, I questioned everything. This situation showed me how complex feelings could be and how they often clashed with what made sense. There was a warmth in her gaze, one I hadn't seen in a long time, and it stirred something inside me. The bond we shared in that brief moment brought back old memories, making it hard to separate them from now. I wondered how I got to this point, looking back and realizing that forgiveness for myself or for others might not be easy. Even though I could stop at any time, something kept me from doing so. I didn't know why I had allowed things to go this far, understanding it was more than just a quick moment. It was something that would impact both of us for a long time. I knew what the right choice was. I had always tried to do the right thing, making good decisions time and again, yet at that moment I grew tired of always being the one to follow the rules. The struggle within me felt heavy, and even though I knew what I should do, I found myself trapped in the moment. Tuesday, July 19th, 2005, 12:10 a.m. My name is William Maitland. Until recently, I had been in a long and complicated marriage with Debbie. She had been the only woman in my life for 20 years, but now everything felt different. I found myself in a situation I hadn't expected, and even though I recognized how complicated things were, I couldn't deny my circumstances had changed. We were in my room on the French cruise ship, Bon Chance, and I felt a mix of emotions. A part of me was burdened by guilt, yet I sensed I was at a turning point. Aline, the woman with me, seemed to share the moment's weight. We had formed a connection neither of us expected, but here we were. As reality set in, the seriousness of the situation faded, and we both reflected on what had just occurred. I lay on the floor. Sorry. She gently pulled me down again, using her hand to wipe away a small cut on my lip. Don't be upset. That felt nice. Did we? Should we have? Are you? I'm fine. And you are too. No worries, Bill. I lay beside her, feeling a warmth that brought comfort. She reached over and touched my side, a look of surprise on her face. Are you sure you're not really 18? I don't quite get it either. I do. You really want to be close to me, don't you? Of course. She leaned down, and I felt a mix of surprise and comfort from her presence. You don't have to do that, Aline. Let me help. She smiled, seeming to enjoy the moment. You do that very well, I must say. She paused, grinning. It's been 6 months, but it's like riding a bicycle. You never forget how. Then she kept talking, and I felt a strong connection that I couldn't ignore. I lay back, feeling peaceful. She rested her head on my chest. Do you need to go to the bathroom? She looked up at me, and for the first time I truly noticed her eyes. They were a deep blue-green, like the sea. I reminded myself, you cannot fall for this married woman. She smiled gently. Why? I like being close to you, Bill. How could I not start to care for her? As I thought about it, we gradually fell asleep in that big red bed, wrapped up in each other's arms. It was the best sleep I'd had in a long time. Tuesday, July 19th, 2005, 8 a.m. Hi, Debbie. Do you have a few minutes before work? Yeah, Mom. I just wanted to chat for a bit. Okay. How is Kelly? She's almost 18. Do you remember what that age was like? Unfortunately. Has she said why she left? She mentioned that her mother is a difficult person who couldn't keep her husband and seeks attention for herself. I assume you two had a disagreement? We had different views. She thinks she's grown up, and I think she acts much younger than her age. Is that all you want to say about it? She won't tell me what happened. Maybe someday when you're much older I will, not until then. Does it involve Doug? No. You wouldn't lie to your mother? Have I ever? Oh, please. I know, silly of me. I forgot you know me well. I'm not going to tell you, but you'll be glad to know that Doug and I are done. No. Are you serious? Yes, Mom. This will make your day. We officially ended things. I told him to pick up his stuff. He's not coming back. Well, at least that shows that prayer works. Very funny. Doug wasn't a bad guy. It just wasn't going to work out. He was a good friend. With extra benefits. He was a friend. That's your story, and you're sticking to it. At least this clears the way for you to work on things with Bill. Mom, when will you understand? We'll be divorced in a month. There's no working on things. It's over. He still cares about you. Sure, that's why he won't talk to me. I've tried, but he either hangs up or tells me to leave his office. If that's what love feels like, I can't imagine what hate would be. That doesn't mean he doesn't care about you. He's just upset. You hurt him, sweetheart. It really stung. I know. But it's not just him not wanting to be together again. I don't want that either, Mom. You're not being truthful. Where have you been all these years, Mom? You know how it's been. Everyone has issues. Why you two can't be together is because something was in your way, Doug. Doug is no longer around. It's not that easy. Honestly, I don't want that relationship back the way it was. I don't feel the same way I used to. You forget that I've known you for almost 40 years. You can fool others, but not me. Anyway, Mom, it's not going to happen. Why not? I know it wouldn't be simple, but many couples have come back from tougher times if you really want your marriage back. It can't happen, Mom. Just let it go. Bill will never think about being together again. How? I just know. In a month, we'll be divorced. Tuesday, July 19th, 2005, 8 a.m. Is there any better way to wake up than feeling completely happy in a beautiful moment? After thinking for a bit, I realized there wasn't. Maybe, despite my struggles and mistakes, there was still something good in my life. I was amazed at how taken I was by what was happening around me. How was I really feeling this way? I must have shared my thoughts out loud. She paused and smiled at me, her eyes shining with happiness. There was a special bond between us. We understood each other without needing to speak. She leaned in and gave me a quick kiss, a refreshing hint of mint on her breath. The moment felt close and comforting, without the heaviness of what had happened before. We shared a light laugh, the earlier tension melting away as we both relaxed. Then, she lay next to me and I asked, "Are you okay?" She smiled. "More than okay." After a while I said, "I need to take a fast shower." As I stepped into the bathroom, the warm water felt good, washing away my thoughts. The evening had been a surprise, but made me feel free in ways I hadn't realized I needed. She came into the bathroom, and we shared a quiet moment under the soothing water. There was no need for more words. The night had moved on, and we both felt at ease. You can accomplish anything if you don't overthink it. She smiled while relaxing beside me under the warm water. I playfully wiped the water off her face and said, "I still think I'm going to wake up alone in my bed. This can't be real." She nestled her head against my shoulder. Thank goodness most cruise ships have endless hot water. Otherwise, we would be feeling uneasy by now. "You know I wanted you to come after me, right?" What was the special hint I was supposed to catch? I didn't see it. I almost didn't come, but I couldn't help myself. "You've really drawn me in." She ran her fingernail lightly down my chest, leaving a gentle trace. "A woman likes a man to pursue her, to show he cares. She wants to feel that he is willing to face any challenge for her. When I heard you were at the lounge, I pretended to be upset, but inside I felt a spark. And when I found out you wouldn't leave, I knew I was right." "Right about what?" "You are the kind of man who doesn't give up when he knows what he wants. And you wanted me, even if you didn't want to say it out loud. There's an old saying that describes a man who can't be turned away from his goal." I looked at her curious. She leaned in closer and whispered, "You are the kind of man who would come for me no matter what." But what if I hadn't shown up? I would have been disappointed. She gazed at me seriously before standing up and offering her hand. "I see what your wife must have seen all those years ago. I can understand why she loved you." As I reached out to turn off the water, I couldn't help but ask, "You're not saying that, are you? Does that worry you? A man who would stand up for one woman even in a crowd? You're married, Aline, and you said you loved Philippe. Was that true?" She hugged me, and her expression was hard to read. "I told you, Bill, you don't really know me, or my marriage. I know it bothers you, but I promise I'll answer your questions soon." We dried each other off, sharing playful moments, and eventually found ourselves back in bed after changing the sheets. I hadn't felt this kind of connection, this much happiness, in a long time. As I thought about my past, the anger and pain were still there, but somehow they felt lighter. Was life just a repeat of high school? She had a new boyfriend, and I had been alone. Now here I was with this amazing woman. I felt like I wasn't such a failure anymore. So very much like high school. She lay back in a pose reminiscent of a famous French painting, resting on her side. "You like it? People have said my figure is my best feature." "You have a wonderful figure, Aline, no doubt. But..." I rolled her over and lay down beside her, connecting gently. "You've also got a fantastic presence and a smile that could light up a room." She playfully pushed my head away. "But my features are so soft compared to..." Your features are just right. She has a more striking look than I do. I looked her up after I learned about you and saw a picture. She is stunning. Am I a letdown? She has a bold look, but that's not everything. Your features are perfect for you. They are warm and welcoming, and your smile brightens the room. If I had any energy left, I would show you just how thankful I am for them. I got back to our talk, and she gently touched my head, where stubble was starting to grow. I would know you're a lawyer even if I didn't know it. You have a way with words. Philippe once said that not all liars are lawyers, but all lawyers are good at convincing people. I lifted my head and leaned back on one elbow. Tell me about you and Philippe. I want to know, Aline, no matter what. I met Philippe at a party in Paris, like I said. It was, as you say, love at first sight. He is a fantastic man, and I knew he had many fans when we wed. I think he left that world when we first got married. But I had already started my career when I met Philippe. I was 27 then. That was 10 years ago. 3 years after we married, I had our son, André. You have a son? Where is he? He goes to school in Paris. He lives with Philippe. How often do you see him? 3 months, sometimes 4 months a year. I miss him so much. I try to spend as much time with him as I can when he is out of school. When I am with him, he is my whole world. We do everything together, and I try to make up for the time I am away from Philippe when I am with him. She turned away a bit, her back facing me. I wish you had waited to ask me. I don't need to see your face to know what you're thinking. What kind of mother leaves her husband and son for most of the year to work for strangers on what is really just a big boat? Do you see a monster when you look at me now, Bill? Do you want me to go? I placed my hand on her shoulder, feeling her shiver. Others might overlook this and not even care, but I know enough about you to see that you care deeply. Do I disgust you? I gently turned her to face me. Tears sparkled in her beautiful blue-green eyes. No, I just don't understand. When I met Philippe, I had already worked 5 years on the Bonne Chance. I had a career, I had a life. After we connected on a deeper level, we talked about our situations. I looked into different cruise lines and travel options. I even managed to get a 3-month break to work for another cruise line. But she looked at me, trying to share her feelings. I know that many might not understand my choice, but you have been with me through stormy nights on the ship, enjoyed the calmness of the sea, and seen the beauty of nature. Every night brings something fresh. I thought about leaving this life when I married Philippe, but I truly love it. I treasure the ocean, my job, the people I meet, and the adventures we share. No other ship gives what we have. We have the whole world right in front of us. How could I ever leave this? After 6 months, we had a deep talk and agreed that Philippe couldn't leave his job. His role is important, and one day he will have a significant job in the French government. He cares deeply about his work, treating it as a path to bigger responsibilities. I could never ask him to give that up. At the same time, I made him understand that even though my job might not seem as prestigious, it is just as important to me. So we agreed to spend part of the year living apart, sometimes 6 months, sometimes 9. Still, we loved each other enough to stay committed. Couples can have strong relationships even when they are not always together, even in your country. And then, André came into our lives. She nestled against me, holding me close. I took a year off, and the cruise line valued my commitment, promising to keep my position. After my leave and the year I spent with André until he was nearly 1, I thought leaving him would be so hard. In the end, I had to leave him with Philippe and a caretaker. I knew I couldn't take him with me. There were many times I almost went to the captain to quit, but I didn't. Each day it became a little easier to accept my choice. Not easy, maybe, but more bearable. I think of him every day. He is almost 7 now. I'm the parent who visits with gifts and love for a few months each year. I know I love him, and I believe he loves me too. I hope that when he grows up, he will understand why I was absent during those early years. But Philippe has been a great father, raising him well. I don't blame you, Aline. I know I should let this go, but the way I should have stepped away a long time ago and maybe saved my family, but I couldn't. I understand, Aline. If anyone understands your struggle, it's me. She hugged me tightly. Do you believe in kindred spirits, Bill? I still can't believe that in just a few days I've grown these deep feelings for you. At first you caught my interest, then you took my heart. That special moment with the fleur-de-lis meant so much to me. If I live to be 90, I will always keep it. And if we never see each other again, I will think of you whenever I hold it. Then it was the best $7,000 I've ever spent. It would have been worth it for just one night. I laughed, feeling her tense. I knew she realized I was joking, but... You know that's why I was so upset with you that night. I'm not someone who can be bought. Never have been. Many wealthy and powerful people often think that if you are attractive and on a cruise ship like this, it's easy to get attention. You wouldn't be here now if you thought I was after you. She teased me with a playful gesture. You couldn't afford me, William Maitland, if you tried to impress me. I asked, so how much would it take to win you over for a night? She playfully nudged me and smiled. I have received fancy gifts, like cash, luxury places to stay, and jewelry worth a lot. One man even wanted to buy me a small private island just for spending time with him for a month. Do you have a private island? She nudged me again. You must be joking. No, I didn't accept any of those offers. I pulled her a bit closer, and we shared a moment. If I could have been more open with my feelings, I would have told her everything. Did I ever feel this way when I was 18? After a moment, we paused to catch our breath. I closed my eyes, and when I opened them again, Aline was beside me. She was dressed and wore a unique pin over her chest. I have to go now for a few hours, Bill. Someone is covering for me, but I'm still part of the crew. Okay, but first, why are you here? With me? Because I made a choice. Why? Not for any simple reason. When we knew we would be apart a lot, we made an unspoken agreement. I never asked him about his life in Paris, and he never asked me about mine here. I know he has other connections. He tries to keep them low-key, but he has many interests. I held her face gently and asked a question that had been on my mind. I didn't want to ask, but I needed to know. And your interests? She looked into my eyes. I have spent time with 3 other people in the last 5 years besides my husband. One was a young Spaniard who was quite persistent, and he won me over with his charm and laughter. He was sincere in his feelings, which made it hard for me to resist. She looked straight at me and said, he was a great companion. He was handsome and focused on my happiness before his own. I enjoyed our moments together, but never felt guilty because it was just a brief encounter. I didn't give him anything I had promised to Philippe. Eventually, his family brought him back home. He reached out to me a few times, but he knew we wouldn't meet again. The second was Niccolo. He was a 63-year-old Italian furrier from Rome. He traveled with us 3 years ago, twice. He was a charming older man. His wife had passed away about a year before, and he seemed so lost. I didn't plan to get close to him, but he touched my heart. When he came back for the second time, I couldn't help but notice him on the first night we were together on board. And you are the third. She looked away and asked, quietly, do you think I'm being silly? No, not in this situation. I understand how Philippe can have company, and anyone can feel lonely when they're away from their partner for a long time. But why did you say being with me is a mistake? She reached out and gently touched my face with one small hand. Because Geraldo was a young man looking for company, and Niccolo was an older man who needed comfort for a sad heart. I never felt anything serious for either of them. Nothing could ever come from those feelings. They weren't a threat to Philippe or what we had. You are different. I told you I felt something special the moment I first looked at you, and you looked back. Since then, I have felt off balance. I love my husband, and you still love your wife too. But when I am with you, this can't be happening. We've only known each other for just over 4 days. It's too soon to feel this way. And you were planning to stop anything from happening last night. Until I took that big step. Would you rather I hadn't gone into Marsh Harbor? She paused before stepping back. No, I will never regret last night. One day this life will end, and Philippe and I will be a typical couple with a grown son and maybe grandchildren. Probably in Paris. Philippe will be a powerful man in the government, and I will attend events and gatherings with him. People will say we are the perfect, happy couple. I will love and respect my husband, but I will always remember you and the time we've shared. I will wear your fleur-de-lis pin, and if anyone asks, I'll say it was a gift from a close friend. Philippe will never question how I received it. Tuesday, July 19th, 2005, 11 a.m., the price of betrayal. The last class of the morning was leaving, complaining about their reading and project work as usual when Miriam Bender appeared at the classroom door. She was the secretary to President Myers and looked down at Debbie as if she were better than her, just another person who wasn't appreciated. "President Myers would like to see you now, if that's all right." Debbie stared for a moment, realizing he likely knew her schedule had her free until 2 p.m. This was obviously a planned meeting, and a sinking feeling told her she knew why. Bender knocked on the elegant wooden door of his office, opened it, and signaled for Debbie to go inside. Myers was behind his desk, finishing a phone call. Once he ended the call, he motioned for her to sit in one of the nice chairs facing him. It was lower than his, so she had to look up at him. In negotiations, it's smart to have your opponent at a lower level. This small detail can make a big difference. "Thanks for coming, Professor Maitland," he said. "I'm always happy to meet with you, President Myers," she replied. Even though he was older, there was a shared understanding between them. She was skilled at handling power dynamics. She had worked at a local bank before becoming a professor, which helped her be strategic in her interactions. Although she often found herself younger than her colleagues, she recognized that the academic world had its own rules. Many professors came directly from school and didn't have real-world experience. They often taught ideas instead of useful skills, leaving students unprepared for real workplace challenges. They didn't discuss how to handle feedback that was influenced by people's views or how to protect your ideas from being taken. There was little advice on navigating professional relationships or understanding how appearances and biases could impact career growth based on personal ties. It wasn't perfect, but in career advancement, how others saw you often mattered as much as your abilities and credentials. They didn't know how to handle social events or casual gatherings with their bosses. She had always tried to mix the practical wisdom from her time at the bank into her teaching, all while managing her research, writing, raising 2 children, and handling her marriage pretty much by herself. She knew she had fallen behind on her research work, giving her critics more to talk about. Myers looked her over quickly. Even though he was older, he was still sharp. "I appreciate your time, Professor Maitland. I wish this could be a better conversation." Her heart beat a little faster. "I've talked with Department Head Rutledge about the staff meeting yesterday. I understand I was late, but there was something personal happening at home. It's not just the lateness that caused problems with scheduling future classes. Professor Rutledge mentioned this is part of a pattern of carelessness. On your end, it seems your teaching responsibilities have been affected by personal issues. President Myers, my personal life has been quite challenging lately, as you know. I've kept my teaching duties. My students got their grades on time, and I'm currently working on a paper that should be ready in a month," he said. He looked at her with a hard, toe-red expression. "I'm sorry, Professor, but there have been many complaints, and some people in your department think you should think about finding a new job. I could fight that." "You could, but why? If they decide you should go, from your experience in the business world, you know it will happen. And while you might push back, it could hurt your reputation so much that it would be better to leave on good terms." She held back her tears. With Kelly leaving, Doug being away, and her upcoming divorce, it felt like everything was getting too heavy. Things had certainly gotten tougher since she decided to end her marriage with Bill, but she still believed it was the right choice. Why? He glanced at his desk for a moment. When he looked at her again, she saw a mix of frustration and sympathy in his eyes. "I shouldn't tell you this, and if you say anything about it, I'll deny it. If it's your word against mine, people know who they would believe. That could hurt your chances when looking for future jobs. But I want you to know why you might lose yours." He paused, then continued with a thoughtful tone. "I once knew a woman in a similar situation. She wasn't as striking as you, but she was truly beautiful. I married her thinking we would be happy for 5 years. That was until I found her with someone else. It's an old story, and it still makes me cringe." She remembered how she wept, saying she still loved him, and it was a mistake because he was working too hard to build the life she wanted. "I was young and foolish, and I cared for her. I took her back, believing she was serious about our relationship. But it didn't matter. We divorced within a year." He looked deep into her eyes, and she wondered if he truly saw her or saw someone else. "You see, when trust and faith are broken, they can't easily be repaired. We should have divorced when I first recognized the trust was lost. If we had separated for a while and then met again, we might have started fresh. But I didn't do that, and I could never restore the trust we once had. After we divorced, I waited 3 years before marrying again. Maybe it was too soon. My second wife was also wonderful, but I struggled to trust her completely. My doubts ruined our marriage, and that was my fault. 5 years later, I met my current wife. We have been married for 29 years and have a son who is finishing his advanced studies at Harvard. My wife has always been supportive, and I care about her. Still, I find it hard to trust her fully. He looked at her intensely, and she realized he was truly seeing her for who she was, not seeing the past. My life changed after my first wife's betrayal. Since that day, I have never felt the same. It's a small thing, yet it still bothers me. I sometimes think of her and know, deep inside, that I still have feelings for her. She was meant to be the one I shared my life with, but she chose a different path. His intense gaze shifted into a cold smile. I have tried not to keep up with her life, not to want to know what has happened. But people talk and I see things. She has been married 4 times, and in 3 of those marriages her partners were not loyal. She has no children. She has faced many struggles, yet I believe she manages them now. Now she lives by herself. I wish I could say I feel sorry for her, but honestly, knowing she has suffered brings me a strange comfort. There is a price for betrayal. The first great betrayer, Judas Iscariot, faced his end. He had the courage to confront his mistakes in the end. You, Professor Maitland, let down a man who obviously cared for you. I could see it in his eyes that evening. He will never be the same. He might return and rebuild his life, but something important will always be missing. That is why, Professor Maitland, I will be ending your position at this university. There were many things she wanted to say, but none would have mattered. She stood up to leave. Professor Maitland, I know this is a shock, and things will be hard for you right now. I suggest you reach out to Johnny August, the public defender in Jacksonville. I can only tell you there is a lot going on in that office. I believe someone with your skills might find a chance there. It's completely your choice. She walked out without looking back and began to think about her next steps as her mind calmed. As she left Meyer's office, she recognized that she had never felt so alone. Tuesday, July 19, 2005, 11:30 a.m. I sat on a chair on deck Quatre, watching the tour boats move through the somewhat choppy waves toward a small island turned into a cruise ship area with a snack bar, changing area, surfboard rentals, and a few other tourist services in an isolated spot. In just 2 days and nights, we would be back in Jacksonville. Already, thoughts of what awaited me started to fill my mind. The trial moved from Orlando would likely happen in a month or 2, which felt just around the corner in attorney time. The last of the 3 individuals involved in a serious case would be going to court in a few weeks. Another tough trial was coming up, a case that would need all my legal skills to make sure justice was done. The situation with the officer, in a sad event, was the main worry that seemed to overshadow everything else. Ideally, these things shouldn't affect the case, but the truth was different. I was starting to make decisions about the officer's case, but I knew the other matters would stay unresolved if I took more time. Luckily, serious charges have no time limits. I thought about these issues while slowly sipping my drink and enjoying its rich flavors. I see you know how to enjoy a nice drink. I looked up and saw a tall brunette. She had a charming presence as she stood at the rail looking down at me. I wondered if I was giving off some kind of charm. My interesting past has taught me how, I replied. She sat in the chair next to me and offered her hand. I shook it, and she looked even more impressive sitting down. I am Danielle Valley. I am one of the ship's assistant cruise directors. Nice to meet you. I've already met one of your colleagues. I know. Aline told me about you, and I've seen her with you. She is a wonderful lady and has done a great job making this cruise enjoyable. She smiled and said, I believe it. There was some strange noise from your room. It sounded just like Aline. When she came out today, she looked happy. I'm sure she smiles a lot. No, she doesn't. Everyone knows why she doesn't smile often. That's why I wanted to thank you. For bringing some joy to a woman who deserves it. She is a kind person, a good team member, and a dear friend." She stood up and walked away without saying anything else. I sat there thinking about my next drink. I was still lost in thought when a short, red-headed man sat beside me as I finished my drink. He was out of his usual clothes, so it took me a moment to recognize him. "Father Dunleavy, good morning to you," I said in my best fake Irish accent. He smiled and replied, "Stick to your day job, Mr. Maitland. What's that delightful drink you're having?" I told him about the drink, and he called over a waiter to order one for himself and another for me. "It's a bit early for drinks, Mr. Maitland, but like that famous American song says, it's 5 o'clock somewhere." We chatted about many things like world politics, possible troubles in Rwanda, and whether tequila crudes or Bloody Marys were the best drinks around. "You can't mention Russia. All they know is vodka, and Italy is all about wine," he said with a smile. We enjoyed our drinks for a while, then he said, "You know she is struggling with her feelings for you. Did she tell you that?" Among other things. I gave her my advice, but I couldn't give her any clear answers. As a Catholic priest, I would think the answer is clear. She is married. She shouldn't get too close to anyone but her husband. Most people would agree with you, and usually that would be the case, but do you know about her and her husband? I know her husband. I considered him a friend until I found myself in this situation, and I believe everyone on this ship knows everything. Being in this tough spot makes it hard for me to define what we have. But that's just a word. Words matter, as a famous commentator has said. I agree with that. Call it what you want. I'm involved with a married woman who I think cares for her husband. I faced a similar issue before, and it did end my own marriage. I can't say I regret my actions, but I'm not proud of them either. Dunleavy took a lick of salt, a bite of lemon, and a splash of tequila, then said, "It's a shame that God isn't as wise as we think we are. You know the truth, but I wonder if God sees it the same way." "What is unclear, Father? I'm a lawyer. I deal with facts and rules. She is married. Married people should be loyal, and she wasn't. Where's the doubt? Things of the heart are not clear-cut. There are no certainties. God gives us rules, but we all know we sometimes fail to follow them. Sometimes we just can't." "Aline told me you say you pride yourself on being a good person, on doing what is right. From what I heard last night, I believe you are a good man who tries to do the right thing, but don't be too hard on yourself about something you might think is wrong. Even if you try your best, only God always does right, and even He can feel mercy and love." "Are you sure you're a Catholic priest? I thought clergymen would stick to the rules more closely." He set his empty glass down next to his chair and reached into his pants pocket for a slim wallet. He took out 2 laminated photos. One photo showed a lovely young woman with red hair, dressed in a style from an earlier time. She had curly hair, dimples, and a bright smile, which gave her a charming look. I knew my father would have recognized her smile's warmth and been drawn to her. The second photo featured a thin young man, likely in his 30s, standing at a podium receiving what appeared to be an award. He resembled Father Dunleavy quite a bit. I became a priest a bit later than most people. I was 25 and had plans to marry. In Ireland, even back in the 80s, life moved a bit differently. This picture is of Brianne O'Collins, the girl I thought I would marry since I was 7 and she was 6. But in my 20s, I started feeling a calling toward the priesthood. I resisted for as long as I could, but eventually I realized I had to follow this path. God wanted me to be a priest, and I couldn't have a wife. It broke her heart just as I feared. After I joined the priesthood, she wouldn't answer my calls or letters. 2 years later, I went to visit her. Her father and 3 strong brothers told me that Brianne wanted nothing to do with me and had decided to marry someone else. It wasn't until a year later that I learned she had passed away that summer. They buried her in our hometown. I went to visit her grave and saw her tombstone, which said, "Returned to the angels." I was devastated and fell to my knees by her side. The only reason I didn't take desperate actions was that I knew it would be a terrible choice. Sometimes I wonder if I made the right decision. Our faith teaches that such actions are unforgivable, which makes me think she must be in a tough place now. Years later, I discovered that she had a son 7 months after I became a priest. Her family kept his existence hidden, but the truth eventually came out. When I learned this, I tried everything to reach out, calling, writing letters, even hiring investigators and seeking help from the Vatican, but her family remained closed off. They were influential and wealthy, and they ignored my efforts. He grew up without me ever getting to know him. A friend saw a photo in an Irish newspaper of the young man receiving an award for his work. He had followed in the family business and seemed to be doing well. When I saw his picture, I wrote to him, introducing myself and asking to meet. I believed I could connect with him directly without his family's interference now that he was an adult. 3 weeks later, I got a short reply. I've lived 25 years without you. You chose not to be part of my life. I see no reason to change that. He looked at both pictures again for a moment, then put them back in his wallet. I thought about reaching out more, but I came to realize he was right. He had grown up without me. It was her family that kept us apart. But I made the choice to walk away from his mother. I believe she cared for me enough to not let her pregnancy hold me back from my journey towards becoming a priest. I had accepted that I would no longer be in his life, and maybe that is how God intended it. He looked at me, and maybe it was the fresh sea air that brightened his eyes. So, you see, Mr. Maitland, I don't have any answers for you, or Aline, or anyone else. I try to do what I believe is right, but when it comes to feelings... He stood up. All I can say is that you seem to bring her joy. Does she bring you joy? I thought about his question. Can someone who struggles truly feel happy? Are those who take advantage of others really content? Was Doug truly happy that night when he won her affection? Is happiness the only thing that counts in life? Then she was standing next to me in the bright sunlight. With her dark hair, she wore a blue and gold uniform that sparkled in the light. Without looking back at me, she said, I have a few hours free, Mr. Maitland. Do you have any ideas for how we might spend it? I have a few ideas. She began to walk away, saying, If we meet in your room, you'll have to fill me in. As I watched her go, I felt a bit lost. Sometimes I wonder if we really have free will. I stood up and followed the path she took. Tuesday, July 19th, 2005, 12:30 p.m. She looked up from the documents she was going through when she heard a knock at her office door. Mark Trenton peeked in and smiled. Hi, Deb. Could you come by my office? Rutledge wants you to check out an article in the journal. He thought it might help with some of our classes. Can I take a rain check, Mark? I'm really busy and I've got a class soon. I still need to finish some preparation. She felt a wave of stress but kept her tone polite. Come on, it won't take long. I'll get you a coffee at Starbucks afterward. You know you love their cinnamon cappuccinos, me treat. It wasn't very exciting, but there was no need to be rude. Mark wasn't a bad guy, he just sometimes hung around her a bit too much. Still, she figured she could use all the friends she could get right now. Okay, let's go. She followed him to his office, where he pointed to a newspaper on his desk. Have a seat and take a look. It should only take a few minutes. She sat down and began reading while he closed the door. That felt a bit strange, but she kept reading. As she continued with the article, she noticed him standing behind her, and a strange feeling filled the air. She shifted in her seat, sensing something was not right. Then, to her surprise, she felt his hand on her shoulder. Startled, she pushed her chair back and stood up to face him. Mark, what's going on? Are you all right? There was an awkward silence, and she realized he had made a mistake. She stepped back, keeping her distance, and gave him a clear look. Seriously, what's wrong with you? Mark stood there for a moment, seeming to realize his mistake. Flustered, he mumbled an apology, and she quickly left the room, eager to return to her work. What are you doing? He hesitated, fear showing on his face, but then he seemed to pull himself together and reached out to grab her wrists. He moved in closer, but she had had enough. The day had already been tough, and she wasn't going to put up with any more nonsense. With a swift move, she pushed him away, freeing herself from his grip. He stumbled back, looking shocked. She stepped forward, her tone firm. Why did you act like this, Mark? What were you thinking? Mark's expression changed, but he couldn't hide his frustration. He didn't seem to understand how serious the situation was, still caught up in his misguided ideas. She took a deep breath, staying calm. If you ever do something like this again, you'll regret it. Do you understand? He nodded, but his tone was bitter. I didn't think you'd react like this. She gave him a sharp look. React? You crossed a line. I could report you for what you just tried. His face went pale, and he stumbled over his words, trying to apologize. "Look, I'm sorry, okay? I messed up." "Sorry isn't enough," she said firmly, turning to leave the room, leaving him to deal with the results of his actions. "You're just a tease." For a moment, she wished she could confront him directly. "All right, you're not thinking straight. But why here? Why today?" "Because Doug has been down for the last 2 days. We thought something happened between you two, so I thought, why not? If you're not with Doug, you must be open to attention from someone. Why not me?" She stepped back, unsure whether to laugh or show her frustration. "Why not you, Mark? Why would I choose you? Let's list the reasons. You're not someone I'd want to be around, that's 1. You're not particularly charming, that's 2. You make me uncomfortable, that's 3. If I were ever interested, I doubt you'd be attentive, that's 4. To you, I'm just a trophy, that's 5. She straightened and carefully kept her distance. "I feel sorry for your wife, considering how you treat her. Now I feel sorry for her because of what she has to look forward to." She reached the door as he muttered unkind things. When she turned to head for her office, she bumped into someone. Losing her balance, a strong arm caught her to prevent her from falling. He quickly withdrew, seeming surprised by the contact. A man with a broad forehead, dark brown eyes, and full lips looked at her with an apologetic expression. "I'm sorry, miss, but at the speed you were going, I couldn't move out of your way." He looked at her face for a moment before glancing back down. Suddenly, everything hit her: Doug and Kelly, Bill, the challenges she faced, and her frustration with the relationships in her life. "Really? You didn't need to grab me. Why do some men think they can just do what they want? Just walk away." People stopped to watch, and the man turned bright red, clearly embarrassed. He seemed to want to say something, but chose to walk away instead. In an instant, she realized her reaction had been too much, but he was already gone. With her upcoming class in mind, she sighed and tried to forget the encounter. Maybe it was time to focus on herself for a while. God knows, living with men could be quite a challenge. Tuesday, July 19th, 2005, 4 p.m. The last student of the day finally shuffled out. With no one around, she dropped her head onto the lectern she had stood behind for most of the classes. The classes were large, and she spent a lot of time delivering lectures from there. If she had a cot in her office, she might have thought about lying down and trying to forget this day. Maybe even the whole week. Maybe the last 4 months, or the last 5 years. But BJ would be home around 8 p.m. from a friend's house. It would just be the two of them. She wanted to be there when he got back. She knew she was feeling overly emotional. Kelly would come back eventually. Teenage ups and downs don't last forever. Doug was gone, but she would meet someone new. She was sure of that. Just not someone like Trenton. Bill was gone, but he had been for a while. As she thought about him, she felt a mix of regret and frustration. If he were here. She rubbed her forehead. It almost felt like a headache. Sure, he had made mistakes. He had ended their marriage. He had complicated her career and her life because she wanted to live on her own terms. Yet those moments of frustration and anger scared her. They had shared many years together. They had been happy for a long time. Why did she feel this way? She shouldn't feel like this now. But she knew it was more than just anger. Oh no. She'd have to call her doctor about her hormones. There was too much going on in her life all at once. Maybe she just needed some support or to unwind. As she walked out, she overheard 2 secretaries in the shared office area of the business department. "I know what you mean. I saw him over in the restaurant with the head of English. They're really focusing on him, but wow, he is charming. That hair and those eyes. You could easily get lost looking at him. Yeah, he's interesting. In a refined sort of way. Yeah, very cultured. But I wonder what he looks like outside of that formal wear. He's not super strong, but it seems like he takes care of himself. Looks fit, for his age." "Oh, wow. Girl, you like him a lot. You're calling him older. He can't be more than 40 or 45. To you, that's young. To me, he's older. But I wouldn't mind talking to him anyway." She walked over to the 2 secretaries who were unaware she'd been listening. She could almost guess what they were thinking. None of the women working here were too fond of her. That was partly her fault. But they seemed a little envious. She smiled at them and tried to act like just another woman working in the building. "Hi." Are you talking about a guy around 6 feet tall with dark brown eyes? We nearly ran into each other around 1 o'clock outside Professor Trenton's office. I've never seen him here before. Does that sound like your guy? Who is he? They exchanged a glance, and Debbie didn't need to be a mind reader to know what they were thinking. Finally, the older one, looking a bit annoyed, said, "That's Clint Abbott." "Who is he? A new professor?" "I guess you missed the latest newsletter. He's a visiting professor, honorary. He's teaching a creative writing class in humanities. He's a writer, well known. I haven't read anything of his, but people say he's quite good, if you like that sort of thing. He's not very typical, if you know what I mean." She thought about it. She had felt bad about how she'd treated him all afternoon. It wasn't his fault he happened to be there when she needed to talk, but still, after finding out that he had a temporary office in the humanities building, she walked the 5 minutes to it. By the time she got there, she was sweating, and her hair, which she'd had up, was coming undone. Her face was shiny, and she knew there were sweat stains under her arms, which made her feel a little anxious. But, she reminded herself, she wasn't really trying to impress anyone. She didn't need to worry about looking perfect. She knocked on the door that read, "Professor Clinton Abbott. Come in." She opened the door, and as he looked up, his expression went still. "Should I duck?" "I'm sorry, I just came to apologize. I was really out of line. I don't blame you for not wanting to talk to me, but I was just upset. You were in the wrong place at the right time. I wasn't mad at you, just with men in general." He relaxed. He glanced at her briefly before his eyes returned to her face. "Why do I have a hard time believing that any guy would give you problems? Appearances can be misleading. You don't look like a writer." He smiled a little. "What do writers look like?" "They usually seem pretty plain, often with thick glasses and a shy attitude." He shook his head. "Those are just ideas people have. You know what they say about pretty blondes. Stereotypes aren't always true." "Stereotypes can be based on some truth, at least from what I hear around here. People often think blondes are not very serious." "I find that hard to believe about you." "Since I've been here, I learned you're an associate professor in the business department at a state university. That means you must have written something. Not what you'd expect from someone like me." "Thanks." "For what?" "It's been a tough day, and those are the nicest words I've heard. By the way, I'm Debbie Bascom." "You're welcome. Can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Would you like to grab a cup of coffee? My last class just finished, and I think yours did too. There's a nice Starbucks nearby that I found. They all look the same, but this one feels special. It might not be good for your reputation to be seen with me. I'm going through a divorce and had a boyfriend. People think I'm seeking the wrong kind of attention." He smiled. "Divorce and boyfriend troubles at the same time. How could I say no? That's not fair." He stood up, and she noticed he was a little taller than her, about 6 feet. He was slim and appeared relaxed. He didn't have the strong build she was used to, and she realized he was older, with some gray in his hair. She focused on keeping things light. This was just a friendly outing, and she had enough going on in her life. "Honestly, I'm not looking for anything right now, not even a little flirting, if that's what you want." He walked around his desk and picked up a briefcase. "I'm a writer, Professor Bascom. My job is to understand people, and you seem interesting. Who knows, maybe I'll put you in my next book, make you unforgettable." He smiled as he gestured for her to go out the door first. "I'm aware of the effect you have on people, but this is just a friendly coffee. Nothing beyond that." Despite her better judgment, she felt a little flustered. Tuesday, July 19th, 2005, 4 p.m. As she reflected on the day, she felt a mix of satisfaction and a bit of soreness from their earlier time together. That was something special, and I might feel its effects for a while. I did talk about my qualities earlier, didn't I? He chuckled softly. "Well, you definitely left an impact." She rolled over to him, enjoying the moment. "I love this, but I have to go back for a while. Are you free for dinner tonight? It could be nice. I'd like that." She washed up and got dressed while he rested on the bed. As she reached the door, he asked, "How do you deal with Philippe?" She stopped, but didn't turn back. "What do you mean? When you see him again, how can you be his wife after everything? I know many people manage this, but I never understood how. If I had been in her place, I knew she would have seen right through me. She walked back and sat beside me. Because Philippe understands. He always has. Just like I know what he's done, even without him saying anything. You can handle it if you accept it from the start. It might be hard for you to grasp, but it works for us. She grasped my shoulder and leaned closer. Remember what I said. Don't think about it. There is no Philippe. There is no Debbie. Our past lives don't matter. We are Aline and Bill, and we live in this moment. This moment will pass, but everything does. Right now, all I want is to be with you. Can you accept that? I guess I have to, Aline. I know this is serious, but I wish I had met you first. I still care for her and my kids, but in this moment, I wish our paths had crossed 20 years ago. She looked at me with tears in her eyes. Please don't say that. For me. When she pulled back, I replied, all right. For now, there is no Philippe and no Debbie. We have no lives to return to. But as she left, I knew I wasn't being honest. Tuesday, July 19th, 2005, 4:30 p.m. That's a sad story, but marriages end all the time now. It used to be that people stayed together for life, working through their problems. Nowadays, we expect more from marriage, and if we aren't happy, we look for something else. She took a sip of her cappuccino, which was mostly foam, just how she liked it. It wasn't the ending. It was how it all happened. I hurt his pride. It was hard for him to see me with Doug, even if we weren't close like that. I wish he hadn't seen us and gotten the wrong idea. Clint sipped his cappuccino and wiped the foam from his lips. That was painful, but it wasn't the worst part for him, Debbie. Most men can accept when their partners are unfaithful. They might forgive a woman who was with another man, especially if they don't witness it. But when a man sees the love of his life tell him she no longer loves him, that's a heavy blow. She shook her head, looking down at the table. I can't believe I just shared so much about my life. You're like a stranger. How can you do that? I told you, I'm a writer. I'm good at getting people to share their stories. She took another sip, enjoying more steamed milk than coffee. So, Mr. Storyteller, what's your story? It's not fair to turn the tables on your host. I showed you mine. Now show me yours. He stirred his drink with a straw, took a sip, and looked out at the busy parking lot on Beach Boulevard. Traffic was starting to pile up, heading back to Jacksonville or towards the beaches at the other end of the highway. I used to be a reporter about 20 years ago. I worked for a small newspaper in Palatka, which is about 50 miles south of here. I was writing my first novel, hoping to leave the newspaper behind and focus on writing full-time. I was also married to an amazing woman. That's why I relate to your story. Elise was very attractive and caught the eye of many people. I ended up marrying her in part because I could express myself well with words. It's true that a well-spoken man can charm a woman. I looked pretty good too, but there's always a but, isn't there? Yes. A man can struggle to keep someone so desired. There were always others interested in her. I suspected she was unfaithful, and even caught her a few times. But I kept forgiving her and taking her back. One of her last partners was a former football player. He enjoyed taking risks. He had some money from his career and managed to get a job coaching at Palatka High School. On the last night I saw her, I came home early from work and found her getting ready to go out with him. I tried to stop her, and during the struggle, I was pushed down. The last words I heard from her were that I was a disappointment, not tall enough, not wealthy enough, and unable to meet her wishes. She told me she would file for divorce the following week. He kept stirring his coffee. That's hard to hear. How long have you been divorced? Widowed. They were crossing the St. Johns River to East Palatka when the car he was driving swerved into the path of an oil truck. He was not sober, and both vehicles were destroyed in the accident. The blast was loud enough to be heard for miles. There wasn't much left to identify them, but the accident happened just 20 minutes after they left me. They found a wallet with her ID half a mile away on the riverbank, swept there by the explosion. I'm sorry to hear that. I was very angry with her for a long time. She broke my heart. But as time passed, that anger faded. I realized it was her beauty and the attention it drew that affected her deeply. I loved her for who she was, and I think that may have made her look down on me. He finished his drink and sat quietly for a minute. That's probably why I found you interesting. You are another beautiful woman, but does it bring you happiness? Can't you see how happy I am? How well my life is going?" He reached out and held her hand gently. "I know it seems tough right now, but you are strong. I can see that in you. And you're beautiful, which might make things tricky, but it can also help. I believe you can use it to your advantage." People do often get back on their feet. When I found out what happened to my wife, I was heartbroken, but I chose to focus on my writing. I finished my first novel, moved away from Palatka, and never looked back. He picked up the briefcase and opened it. Taking out a paperback, he got a pen from his shirt pocket and wrote a message inside the front cover before handing it to her. The cover showed a cowboy on a horse by a river with a woman standing on the other side. It was my first novel and my first success. Ride on by. They even made a nice little film about it. It's a Western, but you might like it. It could help take your mind off things. Read it and tell me what you think. Here's my phone number. Driving home from a tough day, she surprisingly felt better. She wasn't sure why, but her talk with Clint Abbott had lifted her spirits. Even though Westerns weren't usually her thing, she knew she would read it. Tuesday, July 19th, 2005, 7 p.m. Aline and I sat at a table for two. The restaurant was nearly full, but we had our own space. I realized I would need to work out after this cruise because my appetite had returned, and I didn't know if it was the trip, the sea breeze, the French food, or Aline. Most likely, it was Aline. Just being next to her at that table, with nice linens and the smell of white wine and delicious food mixing with her perfume, made me feel young again. I hadn't felt this way in a long time. It felt like a date again. Even though we shared a strong bond, there was still a sense of newness, a thrill about how the evening might go. It had been years since I'd felt this way. It's different from being married. No matter how much you love someone, that sense of excitement often fades after you're married. The fun of the unknown is what makes meeting someone new special. I had thought I would never want to feel that again. She leaned closer and offered me a taste of Charolais beef in mustard sauce. I took it. A drop slipped from her finger and I playfully caught it. I tried to push away thoughts of the past. It took us about an hour to finish our meal. I had worked out earlier in the day and planned to again later, though I wasn't sure I'd find the time for the gym. "I have a few errands, my dear, but I will try to be back in an hour or two. I will miss you." She didn't kiss me because there were people around, but she gently touched my lips with her finger. It was a sweet gesture. After she left, I sat at the table sipping a cup of French coffee. I've always known that French coffee is strong, not bitter like Cuban coffee, but definitely rich. In Paris, Philippe had a barmaid show how to make coffee in a French press. It took me a month back in the U.S. to get used to American coffee, which felt weak to me. French coffee was much richer, and I enjoyed it. Captain Martel sat down next to me and said, "You seem to like French coffee. Many Americans take time to enjoy it. Aline told me you visited Paris." "I appreciate many things about France, Captain." He smiled and said, "Aline is a lovely woman." I nodded in agreement. "I'm glad you two are friends. It's clear you are a lonely man and Aline." "I don't think she has ever been lonely, Captain. You have many nice women on this ship, but she stands out." "She is indeed beautiful, but life on this ship can feel lonely with so many people coming and going. You know she has smiled more in the last 2 days than I can remember." "Does it bother you that she's married and open about her friendships?" The captain looked at me and smiled again. "That is why many in France and elsewhere see Americans as somewhat naive. We have different views. You seem to see things as very clear-cut good or bad, saved or lost. We think of life in shades of gray. We believe everyone makes mistakes. We are all human, trying our best but sometimes failing." He poured some white wine into a glass and took a sip. "People will seek companionship. It's a natural need. These connections can happen when separated or living together. Feelings can develop between people. It has always been that way." He set his glass down. "I have been married for 38 years and love my wife and our 4 children deeply. But I have spent much of our marriage at sea. I was a sailor when I met her. We have been apart more than we have been together. I cherish our time together. I know she has not always been completely faithful, though she has been careful. I have wondered about it, but I don't know for sure who she may have been with. Our children might have their suspicions, but they don't really know or ask. She has never brought me shame. Our children look like me and have traits that tell me they are mine. But even if they weren't, they are still dear to me." He shrugged lightly. "As a man, I have needs too, and I try to be mindful of my role. I haven't always held back, and I cannot expect my crew to act differently from myself." He looked at me once more. "I hope that's not shocking to you, but it's the truth. I try to be a good man. In every important way, I have been faithful to my wife. I have always been careful to keep her safe. I care for her deeply, and when my time comes, I hope to be resting next to her. But," I could only shake my head, "I understand what you're saying, but it's true. We come from two different worlds." Tuesday, July 19th, 2005, 8 p.m. She was finishing up grading essays when she heard the front door open and a car pull out of the driveway. "BJ? It's me, Mom. Have you eaten? I have some lasagna in the microwave." "Nah, I had pizza at Bobby's." "Where is Bobby? I have enough for both of you." "He's not here. He usually comes in to say hello." BJ stepped into the den. "He wanted to, but I told him you were probably busy." "Why?" "He can be a bit much sometimes, Mom, the way he looks at you." "BJ, he's just a teenager. All your friends do that with any moms or teachers, don't they?" "Not like they do. Anyway, I wanted to talk to you about something." "Oh?" There was something in his voice that made her feel uneasy. "What?" I hope you won't get mad about this, okay?" "Mad about what?" "I called Grandma Maitland yesterday. I want to go spend the rest of the summer with her and Grandpa Charles." "But what about your summer classes?" "Why?" "That summer class isn't worth it, Mom. I don't think I'll do well enough to get credits. I can catch up in the fall. Besides, I met this girl online. She's 15 and lives in Orlando. Grandma Maitland said she'd help me out on outings. I promise I won't get into any trouble. Grandma said she would take care of things." She set her papers down and motioned for him to come closer. He sat down on the couch next to her. She took his hands in hers. "BJ, if this is about Doug, I broke up with him. We're done. He won't be coming back here, I promise." He wouldn't look her in the eye. "It's not that, Mom. It's everything. It's Dad and the divorce and Doug and... It's been a really hard summer. I just want to get away for a bit. It's just for a month." She tried not to cry. "Oh, okay. You have to promise not to be a hassle for your grandparents, and don't get into any trouble, you know what I mean." "Yeah, I know." She hugged him tightly, fighting the urge to let tears flow. It was only for a month. "Grandma's driving up tomorrow. She'll be here around 3. "No. Tell her to come at 6. I want to say goodbye to you." "Oh, Mom, I'm going to say goodbye. Say yes or don't go." "I'll call her." After he went to his room, she settled back on the couch and tried to grade papers. It was impossible. If she got fired tomorrow, she didn't want to see another paper. She tried to turn on the TV and watch something, but after 30 minutes, she had no idea what she'd been watching. She picked up the paperback Clint Abbott had given her. Anything to help her forget her troubled life. At 2 a.m., she found herself dialing a number on her bedside phone. "Hello? I guess you don't get many 2 a.m. calls from fans." "Actually, I do, but not usually from upset fans." She wiped her tears. "I might have had a bit to drink. Did I wake you? How did you answer so fast?" "I'm a night owl. I usually sleep only 4 or 5 hours. They say older people need less sleep. So why are you feeling down?" "I could blame your book, but I don't want to boost your ego. I'm just feeling a bit low." "Just admit it, it was the book." "Fine, you got me. Why didn't he go back to the Rio Grande for her? Her husband was gone and he had been difficult. She didn't deserve that. The gunfighter cared for her. Why did he leave her all alone?" It made for a better ending. I'd rather have readers crying than saying, "Aw." Also, it's open-ended. There's no reason he didn't go back for her. That's what makes a good story. You don't know what happens after the end, and if it were real, it happened a long time ago. They'd both be gone now. She took another sip of her drink and said, "How can someone so cynical write a book like this?" "What can I say? I'm skilled." "Thank you." "You're welcome." "For what?" "For letting me escape my thoughts, even just for a little while. Anyway, good night." Somehow she managed to sleep. Tuesday, July 19th, 2005, 11 p.m. I held one of the 2 most wonderful women I had known and listened to her breathe. It was the calm, steady breathing of sleep. I couldn't sleep. It felt wrong. I didn't want it to end. But as I had read, tomorrow always comes. Tomorrow would come, and then another tomorrow, and the best week of my life would soon be over. I felt like I did the night my father walked out, scared and helpless. Wednesday, July 20th, 2005, 6 p.m. Eleanor, you look well. The short, slender woman looked up at Debbie without smiling. Thank you. Is Bill Jr. ready? We need to drive straight through to get home before morning. I wish we could have picked him up as planned. I'm sorry, but I wanted to say goodbye. I'll miss him. Too bad you don't miss other important things. You let many things slip by. I guess this means you'll have more time for your personal life. Debbie reached out but paused at Eleanor's sharp look. I'm sorry, Eleanor. You've only heard Bill's side of things, and I know I must not look good in it. But there are two sides to every story. Eleanor just stared. He risked his life to save you almost 20 years ago. I told him back then that he was making a mistake. A pretty face and charm don't always lead to a good relationship. I warned him. She scanned the area to make sure BJ was not near. I told him before that you weren't the right choice, Debbie Maitland. No good woman would have ended up in your situation. But he believed in you, and I kept quiet all these years. You gave him two wonderful children, I'll give you that. But I always knew you would hurt him. And you did. I think you crossed a line by involving someone else in what was once his life. I hope that finally puts an end to things. He is hurting, Debbie, but he will find someone else. Someone who truly deserves him. And you can go back to your old ways. I'm not going to argue with you, Eleanor, not with BJ around. Bill is your son, and I understand that you support him. I'll leave it at that. BJ came out with Eleanor's husband, a tall, gray-haired man. They carried 3 suitcases. While Charles took them to the car, Debbie hugged BJ tightly, even though he was trying to wiggle free. I want you to call me. I will, Mom. It's not like I'm going far. It's just a couple of hours away. He walked out, and Eleanor stayed for a moment. She didn't need to say a word, just a slight smile. Then she walked out the door. For a long time after the car drove away, she sat in the den. It felt as if the room was filled with memories. She could hear Bill asking her if she wanted a drink or telling her a funny story from his day. She could hear Kelly's laughter or her chatting with friends. BJ would peek in, worried that there was nothing to eat in the house. The memories faded. It was so quiet she wished she could scream. She recalled the sad times. It felt unreal, but Bill was gone, and Kelly was gone, and BJ was gone, and Doug was gone, and Clarice was buried. Wednesday, July 20th, 2005, 11:55 p.m. Hi. Oh, hi, Debbie. Have you read any more of my books? No, Clint. I just thought you sound a bit down, like you've been crying. A little bit. What brings you to call me? You mentioned you were a night owl. Would you like to grab a drink or coffee or something? You want to go out this late on a school night? No, I thought maybe you could come to my place. I can give you directions. I have coffee and soft drinks. Is there anything you'd like to have? Debbie. Clint, we are adults. I don't want to play games. I want you to come over. My daughter moved out, my son is staying with his grandparents for a month, and I recently ended a relationship that wasn't right for me. I feel so lonely I want to shout. I don't want to go to a bar and find someone I don't know. That's not me, even if others think otherwise. I think I like you. We don't have to do anything if you don't want to. I just want someone to hold me, someone to be there. I'm sorry, Debbie. It's tempting, but I can't. I'm sorry, too. I must sound so unsure. No, I see you, and I understand. But it would be out of pity, and I have my pride. When you're truly interested in me, then maybe. Just my luck. I end up with 2 good guys. One who cares more about the world than me, and the other who thinks he's above pity. What's the deal with men? I'm not so noble, Debbie. Actually, I'm somewhat involved with someone, but I can't just end things for a moment of distraction. Oh no, I can't believe I'm in this position, asking a stranger for comfort. Debbie, listen. You might not believe me now, but you need to understand something. You've never truly been alone. Your kids will be grown soon, and if you don't learn to be okay by yourself, you might forget who you want to be. I don't think you want that. You need to learn how to live on your own, no matter who comes into your life later. What makes you so wise? I've been through it. You may feel lonely right now, but you can get through this. Thursday, July 21st, 2005, 8 a.m. I woke up to a quiet ship. The usual movement of the ship through the ocean had stopped. There was a gentle sway as the ship rested in the harbor, but we were home. The warmth beside me stirred a little, bringing comfort. I realized that sometimes just having someone nearby can feel peaceful, even when things are tough. After the weekend, I felt what a true connection meant again. It was a nice change. So we are here? It seems that way. Do you need to be somewhere? No, not at all. She moved closer, her eyes sparkling with laughter as we shared a light moment. We rolled around a bit and ended up with her playfully holding me down. I think I will keep you here and find ways to entertain you for the next few months. If only you could, Aline. She sighed and then lay down next to me. I'm not sorry and I have no regrets. I gently held her face in my hand and softly traced my fingers. I have regrets, more than a few, my dear, but I'm not sorry for even one moment of what we shared. Will I ever see you again? Only in dreams, or maybe you'll see my picture in the news one day. You could find a way to join us next time, just for a week. Take some time off and sail with us until our next stop. I sat on the side of the bed, pulling away. No, I couldn't. If I could take time off for someone important, I wouldn't have needed this trip, and I never would have met you. There are things I need to do. She reached out and gently took my hand. Would you have come, even if you could have gotten away? I held her hand and spoke sincerely. No, I wouldn't return. If I was on the same ship with you, I worry I would lose control of my feelings. And that would be so bad? Not for you, Aline. You seem happy in your life. I'm not, and I can't be. I care about you, but I cannot let my feelings make my life harder, especially with my responsibilities. I need to be comfortable with myself, Aline. I need to look in the mirror and feel good about who I see. Her eyes shone with understanding. I will think of you, William Maitland, often. Will you think of me when you go back to your life? Every day. I got up and took a quick shower, then changed into the clothes I had picked, putting my phone in my pocket. I had it turned off for the whole trip. Once I stepped off the Bonne Chance, I would turn it back on, and life would go back to normal. I had one suitcase, packed and ready. I had filled out the form with only the gifts for BJ and Kelly listed, but it would likely take a few hours to leave the ship. I glanced at the bed. She lay there, her presence bright against the deep red sheets. You're not going to get dressed and see me off? Are you going to stay in bed? She looked at the ceiling. No, I won't watch you leave the Bonne Chance. We'll say goodbye here. I won't get busy until we start preparing the ship for the next cruise. I set my suitcase by the door and sat back on the bed. I leaned closer, cherishing the moment before giving her a soft kiss on the lips. It has been a great pleasure to know you, Miss Desjardins. Likewise, Mr. Maitland. I stood to leave, but I couldn't. I sat down one more time. Aline, it's not my place to tell you how to live your life. Just be careful. I know you love this life, but what happens if you lose your husband and son because of it? Will this life be enough if it's just you? I would hate to see you make the mistake I did. It's too late for me, but it's not too late for you. I got up, took my suitcase, and walked out the door. I didn't look back. I had no pictures of her to take with me, but that didn't matter much. Her face was clear in my memory. Photos can be lost, but nothing could erase my memories. I made my way to Deck 4, where other passengers were gathering. I saw Dan Jenkins and Caroline. He waved at me, and as I got closer, he came over to shake my hand. It was nice to be on this cruise with you, Mr. Maitland. If you ever need life or homeowner's insurance, give me a call, he said, handing me a business card. I will. Take care of your new wife, I replied. They don't come along every day. As I walked closer to the check-in area where customs officers were asking travelers about what they were bringing back, I saw Father Dunleavy right in front of me. He had a smaller suitcase than mine. Father, I called out, and he turned to look at me. Mr. Maitland, it seems we keep running into each other. Are you ready to go back to your life? Not really, but I have to. Where are you off to? No rest for me. The Vatican asked me to lead a team to Rwanda to help prevent another outbreak of the Hutu-Tutsi conflicts. It has been quiet for a few years, but there are worries it might start again. I'm on my way to Jacksonville Airport to get a flight to France and then to Africa. I shook his hand. Be safe. I hope you have as much success this time as you did before. That's not up to me. It's in God's hands. But I appreciate your kind words. I'll keep you in my thoughts. I don't do it often, but I will think of you too, Father. He turned back to the line as it was his turn, and I wondered if I would see him again outside of news broadcasts. An hour and a half later, I was walking down the ramp onto the ground in Jacksonville, Florida. I took a deep breath of the warm, humid July air. It felt like I was waking up from a dream and returning to my real life. As I promised myself, the first thing I did was turn on my phone. It rang right away. I answered it. I wondered what urgent situation awaited me. Hi, Dad? Hey, BJ, what's going on?
What's up, story lovers? This is the Story Guy, and if you're hungry for crazy tales and mind-blowing narratives, you've come to the right place. Don't forget to smash that subscribe button so you don't miss out on our weekly dose of crazy cheating stories, fun fiction and gut-ripping comedy from around the world. But that's not all. We also create our own original stories, and trust me, you won't find these anywhere else. Want even more spine-tingling reads? Head down to the description and grab our exclusive story collections. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.